Alright, stick with me here. You're about to watch an army commander totally humiliate the third prince, calling him absolute trash just because of his birth. Normally, this kid is super weak and just takes the abuse. But not today. A crazy, murderous aura completely crushes the arrogant soldier. Then our prince casually picks up a twig. His message, disrespect, gets paid back with your life. But let's rewind a bit. Meet Prince Calian Reincarnation. Born to a servant and a lord, he is third in line to the throne of Kyris, basically the most overpowered nation on the entire continent. He is weak, constantly mocked, and totally alone inside. His half-brothers ignore his existence. The royal knights call him a rat. Even the servants treat him like a joke. But guess what? Everything literally just changed. Inside that fragile body, not the same Calian anymore. It is Bern Secretia, a king who lost everything. In his past life, Bern ruled Secretia with pure honor. That is until a crazy artifact called the Axis of Time popped into his palace, sparking an absolute nightmare of a war. Kyris demanded the artifact. Secretia said no. Boom. War broke out suspiciously fast, almost like Kyris just wanted an excuse to attack. Bern fought like an absolute beast, but finally fell to Commander Arson on a ruined battlefield. The mastermind, the completely insane king of Kyris plants. But then Bern randomly wakes up here exactly 10 whole years before the war even starts. Stuck in the body of an enemy prince, he actually has a tiny chance to fix things, but time is running out. Now pay attention, because here's the crazy part. The real Calian gets assassinated in just a few months, ordered by the literal queen herself. Bern knows the plot. He also knows a wild secret not even the most loyal servants caught on to. Little Calian was actually a mage. 3 mana circles are secretly hiding near his heart, but using them, the pain alone might literally kill him before any assassin even tries. With the clock ticking, Bern makes his first big move. No more hiding. He chops off his hair. He finally stops staring at the floor. And when Psycho Plants throws a knife at a servant during breakfast, Bern casually catches it, barehanded, bleeds, smiles, and just sets it down next to him. Total silence. The second prince is completely stunned. He has never seen this side of him. And the next move, way more epic. Out on the training grounds, Commander Pavel, a knight backing Plants, literally calls Calian a bastard rat right in front of the whole squad. The old Calian would have just backed into a wall and cried. Bern just smiles, grabs a tree branch, asks Pavel what his actual job is, and before he can even answer, dashes right behind him. With just a dumb stick, he smacks the trained commander's sword clean out of his hands. Pavel instantly drops to his knees, loudly begging for forgiveness in front of his troops. Bern just listens as he desperately swears he meant no treason. While Pavel finishes crying for mercy, Bern just stares down at him with absolute disgust. Still eating dirt in front of everyone, Pavel knew he was never ever going to live down this massive humiliation from the third prince. You and I both know Jan is confused right now. The poor servant just stares, wondering why an endurance run involves showing up with a horse. Jan just stands there totally dumbfounded while Bern happily holds this massive black beast by the reins. Bern casually tosses the reins over, claiming he just randomly found the horse on his walk and decided to name him Raven. Yen nervously asks where he actually went. So after the whole commander beatdown wrapped up, Bern had spotted this angry horse kicking around and asked what the deal was. Turns out the horse refused to listen to any of the knights. Nobody could tame this incredibly fierce, absolute tank of an animal. Then Bern remembered this beast actually belonged to Plants. Yan basically has a heart attack, realizing his prince just randomly stole his psycho brother's horse. Bern just shrugs, saying Plants let anyone ride it anyway. Then he casually whispers to the trainer to keep that whole Pavel face-slapping incident super quiet. Yan is literally shaking in fear right now. He is terrified the second prince will find out, but Bern just smiles, promising that everything is going to be perfectly fine no matter what. Suddenly a sharp pain hits Bern right in the chest, totally freaking out his guys. Clutching his heart, he realizes he definitely pushed this weak body way too hard. Jan panics, asking if the endurance run was too much, but our prince smoothly brushes it off. He claims he just had a fun little chat with someone. Meanwhile, a hidden spy watching them quickly dips out as Bern casually tells Yan it is dinner time. Over in a fancy garden gazebo, someone is getting the spy's report. Twirling a flower, this shady guy smirks, noting that even weak worms squirm when stomped. Then he just crushes the flower coldly, declaring that no matter how hard Bern struggles, he can never ever erase his lowly origins. So what do you and I make of this? Tossing the dead flower, he decides straight up killing him is boring, so they will just watch. And once again, all 3 royal princes are gathered for dinner. Let's dive right into this toxic royal family drama. Even though Bern was here daily, the heavy atmosphere felt completely unbearable. Prince Plants looked completely lost in thought today. Bern caught his expression. Why was Plants looking so totally defeated today? Sipping his wine, Plants couldn't even hide his anxiety. Were the Queen and the Viscount running late just to mess with him? His face gave everything away. Boom. The dining room doors swung wide open. Everyone instantly stood up, eyes glued to the entrance. A familiar scent hit Bern first. Honestly, he was secretly thrilled to see exactly who was walking in. It was the queen herself, rocking a stunning green dress and icy blue hair. Queen Seelike Brisson. The second wife, but let's be real, she held all the true power here. After the first queen passed away, Seelike grabbed the throne using her noble family to completely dominate the knights. With the nobles backing the Brisson family, her absolute control grew stronger every single day. Because of that, the third prince, Calian, was basically a nobody, even lower than normal guards. The Viscount walking beside her started talking about punishing Pavel. She just nodded, promising to give him what he supposedly deserved. Taking her seat, the queen coldly ordered the Viscount to stop bothering her with garbage details. He quickly bowed in total submission. Staring right at Calian, she scoffed about why she even had to deal with such trash. Bern just stared her down with freezing eyes. The whole table went completely dead silent watching the drama. Now watch closely, this is where the tension spikes. The queen called out to Calian, smirking that he had grown up lately. Instead of shaking in fear, Calian actually smiled. That unexpected calm totally threw the queen off. Holding his glass, he casually replied that he hadn't grown all that much just yet. Still smiling, he promised he was going to grow way bigger soon. The other two princes stared at him in absolute shock. The queen glared daggers at him. Yeah, she was definitely furious at that comeback. The Viscount blindly praised her, ignoring Calian entirely. Meanwhile, Plants shot Calian a nasty sideways glare full of pure bitterness. His mother leaned in, whispering harshly about why he hid things from her. Plants, totally lost, asked what she was even saying. She brought up his horse acting out and ignoring his orders. It took a second for that humiliation to actually hit him. When it clicked, Plants looked away, his face burning red from the sudden embarrassment. She hissed that he should have reported it sooner. Plants just snapped back that she clearly already knew everything anyway. Gripping his fork in pure rage, he listened to the queen complain that he kept his disobedient horse a secret from her. He slammed his fork down hard. That stupid horse was useless trash right from the beginning. Plants shot out of his chair, announcing he was out of here. His mother gasped, shouting his name at his total disrespect. Let's pause for a second as 3 weeks fly by. The king's birthday was finally here and everyone was stressed beyond belief. Huge caravans of horses rolled up packed with royal gifts. The hype for this banquet was off the charts. Everyone in the kingdom was buzzing, wondering what kind of crazy moves the princes were plotting for the big event. Meanwhile, a royal tailor was double-checking the measurements he took for Calian's brand new outfit, but the numbers were totally off from last time. What was going on? Right as he was about to ask if Calian was eating enough splash, a single drop of blood hit the stone floor. The tailor looked up at the prince's face and completely panicked at the sight. Blood was pouring from Calian's nose. The prince looked totally stunned, while his loyal servants scrambled around in absolute panic to help him. His main servant screamed for towels immediately, but Calian just waved them off, claiming it was no big deal. He played it cool, blaming the crazy blood loss on just getting zero sleep. Yan totally rejected that excuse. Then the tailor chimed in nervously, pointing out that the nosebleed wasn't even the scariest part here. He revealed that Calian had lost a dangerous amount of weight, like his body was visibly shrinking by the day, which was terrifying. As the bleeding slowed down, Calian secretly admitted he really was dropping pounds fast. Forcing a bright smile, Calian blamed his intense new workout routine. But deep down, Bern realized his physical stamina was somehow getting worse every day. Channeling mana felt like pure torture now. Bern suspected something was seriously wrong with his heart. The tailor begged him not to ignore this. Had the prince even seen a doctor for a proper checkup yet? Calian brushed it off as unnecessary. Though Bern cursed his luck for bleeding out in front of literally everyone today. You and I know he's lying, the tailor argued back, but Calian firmly swore he was totally fine. Let us jump back into the madness. Jan loudly claims the prince is bleeding just because he keeps picking his nose. He adds that hiding such a gross personal hobby from everyone must have been super tough. Calian is absolutely dumbfounded by his loyal servant, while the confused vassals start whispering loudly. Yan wraps up, insisting the prince eats and exercises perfectly fine, so the bleeding is definitely just from his nose-picking habit. The tailor nods along, figuring Yan obviously knows the royal habits best. Yan shoots Calian a cheeky smile and a wink, but Bern trapped inside Calian's body is still completely clueless. Suddenly it clicks. He remembers the day he told a worried Jan that his bad health issues were actually just side effects from secretly using mana and practicing real magic. With his jaw practically hitting the floor, the prince wonders if Yen is intentionally ruining his royal image. But then sheer relief washes over him. His clever servant just totally saved them from an absolutely terrible, super embarrassing situation. The tailor happily repeats his solid promise to fix up the fancy clothes. Though he looks pretty nervous since he is seriously lacking in time, Yan smoothly steps in, claiming the prince has prior engagements first. This gives the relieved tailor plenty of time, so he leaves smiling and completely satisfied. As Yan whispers for the prince, Bern asks, his voice actually shaking a bit, if the big day is finally here. Bern stays dead quiet, his mind totally consumed by pure anxiety. Now pay close attention here. He desperately needs to meet Mage Allen before the crazy palace gossip completely explodes everywhere. So before this secret goes totally public, finding Allen is his absolute top priority today. Lunchtime rolls around. They hit the dining hall only to be told that their fancy lunch is abruptly cancelled over some urgent royal drama. Instead, they are doing super awkward one-on-one individual meetings. The prince is completely caught off guard. How on earth will the king have enough time for everyone? Bern thinks a big group meeting makes way more sense, but he obediently follows right behind the royal butler. Hitting the very first chamber, Bern actually feels nervous. He definitely was not prepared for a totally private meeting. The heavy door finally swings open. A voice calls him inside, stating that His Majesty is waiting for him. The prince steps in, finding a man on the sofa, casually engrossed in a newspaper. This is the King of Kyris, Ruthless Kyris, and he does not even look up. The third prince delivers a perfectly respectful bow to His Majesty. Then he slowly stands up tall, really hoping for some direct eye contact. But he gets absolutely nothing. The king shows zero regard for his presence, keeping his eyes firmly glued to the paper. I know what you are thinking. Bern might ignore royal etiquette sometimes, but this king is just being straight up incredibly rude right now. Finally, the king tells him to sit. The prince politely wishes him a very happy 38th birthday. Without even blinking or looking away from his daily reading, the king casually says he looks healthy, completely shocking our poor prince. He suddenly remembers all his loyal vassals constantly stressing over his fragile health. Even the random passing palace maids know he is already fully recovered. The prince finally understands why the king wanted one-on-one meetings, despite the time crunch. If he met all three sons at once, he would actually have to pay attention and concentrate on the conversation. So ignoring them one at a time is much easier. He treats his own kids like a total waste of time. Bern genuinely thinks this royal family is incredibly weird. An absentee dad who does not care. A first prince who genuinely cares about absolutely nothing happening around him. And a second prince who constantly reeks of alcohol, lacks manners, and treats his loyal servants like total trash. While Bern is judging them, someone strolls into the dining room. The king, sounding incredibly annoyed, immediately snaps that she is late. It is the queen. With a super sarcastic tone, she basically says, "Oops, it simply happens." Flashing a mocking smile, Bern realizes the queen clearly holds enough serious power to totally disrespect the king. Bern just smiles back casually, reminding himself that someone in this very family is actively trying to kill him. As the announcer loudly screams that the event is starting, Bern mentally hunts for the person who ordered his assassination. When the prince steps out before the crowd, people immediately start whispering about his totally insane new glow-up. Meanwhile, second prince plans is completely wasted. The king and queen totally notice this, but she coldly claims this changes absolutely nothing. The crowd just gossips while he carelessly chugs his wine. But the king mutters that something is definitely different, completely unlike the past. So, what do you and I make of this? The third prince confidently enters the hall, stunning everyone into absolute silence. They finally realize the crazy rumors are actually true. That black hair. Those glowing red eyes. He looked exactly like Cispanian. Let's jump right in. The prince's new style grabbed everyone's focus, especially since he finally chopped those messy bangs. Plus, that flashy red brooch he pinned on made his eyes absolutely pop. It was a loud, clear statement. He was completely done hiding from the world. Seeing everyone stare at his outfit made him smile happily. His loyal servant Jan leaned in close, whispering about why everyone kept staring at his clothes. Jan smugly added he already knew why, making Prince Calian stare right back, waiting for the punchline. Flashing a massive smile, the servant joked that it was obviously his stunning beauty. He mentioned Cispanian would be super proud seeing him like this. Honestly, that random comment completely caught Calian off guard. Calian quickly clarified they were actually staring at his fancy new jewels. Talking about it, he remembered the poor jeweler sweating bullets to make them. Calian warned Yan to just be happy with this minimal look. If he had worn every single piece of jewelry, this whole situation would be 10 times crazier. Still, Yan stubbornly insisted the prince looked totally awesome. Strolling through the massive hall, Calian casually asked if Yan's family still lived in Kyrosis, the Kyris capital. Yan blinked, completely shocked the prince remembered. The servant explained his dad and little sister moved back to their hometown, leaving only the rest of his relatives behind in Kyrosis. Curious, the prince asked if his family would ever visit the royal palace. Yan awkwardly replied they would, but only with an invitation. Calian just froze and stared. Desperate to change the subject, Yan asked when he should grab Raven, who was chilling in the garden. Calian instantly caught the hint. The guy clearly hated talking about his family. The prince figured everyone has some personal secrets they would rather keep hidden. Calian finally answered, saying they just had to wait for the perfect moment. Then the prince casually dropped that he wanted to meet someone specific, totally confusing his servant. Calian pointedly asked if Jan knew why this giant hall was called Siegfried. The servant confidently fired back that of course he knew. It was named after the ultimate war hero and first family head Duke Quitros Horn Siegfried. The Siegfried clan is literally the only ducal family in Kyris. Even with insane power, they stayed completely loyal to the royals for over 500 years, stubbornly defending the Cispanian territory without breaking a sweat. Calian remembered being totally amazed by that exact story back when he was Bern. Yen blinked, asking if the person the prince wanted to meet was actually in this room. Now watch closely. Before Yan could even finish asking, a booming laugh echoed through the hall, instantly answering his question and grabbing their attention. A booming voice joked that Siegfried's summer nights never get old. Yan immediately pointed the loud guy out to the prince. Right over there. That was Duke Slayman Siegfried himself, super elegant, rocking a perfectly styled beard, long hair, and a ridiculously charming smile. Calian felt pretty happy inside. He respected anyone coming from a family with that much historic loyalty. Sneakily, Prince Calian started leaking a tiny bit of magic, testing the Duke's senses. Boom! Slayman instantly felt that magical energy shifting in the room. He snapped his head straight toward the third prince. Locking eyes with Calian, Slayman realized exactly where that mana was coming from. Calian smoothly shut his magic off, feeling totally satisfied with the result. Just as expected, Slayman caught him in seconds, even with barely any power leaking out. Yan leaned in, whispering that the Duke seemed weirdly interested in him now. Obviously, Slayman was one of the continent's 5 master swordsmen, so he was bound to notice. Calian muttered it was still way too early for that. He ordered Yan to play dumb and ignore Slayman's intense staring, casually turning around to slip right out of the Duke's vision. Slayman just watched them leave, fully aware that crazy power came straight from the young prince. Soon enough, the king raised his glass for a toast. He thanked everyone for coming and officially kicked off the wild party in Kyris' name. I know what you're thinking. A rope escape. Yep, Calian and Yan totally jumped out the window, sliding straight down into the garden. Down there, Plance's notoriously stubborn horse was waiting for the third prince. Surprisingly, under Calian's command, the beast acted super calm and gentle, earning some nice head pats. But Yan aggressively warned him not to be fooled. Still watching how nicely the horse behaved around Calian, Yan had to admit the animal was surprisingly smart. The servant asked if they were heading straight for the main gate. The prince nodded. Right now nobody was getting inside without an official invitation. Getting close to the gate, they spotted massive chaos. The guards were arguing with some random visitor, claiming he traveled a super long way. Even with his sob story, a guard bluntly told him access was denied, politely asking the guy to kick rocks. Calian watched the whole ridiculous drama unfold. Suddenly, the prince gasped, completely recognizing the unexpected guest. The visitor casually asked if he was getting blocked just because he lacked a paper invitation. Holy crap, it was Alan Manassel himself. And trust me, the second they realized who was on that horse, the guards completely panicked. You're definitely going to want to see what happens next. Let's jump right in. Even knowing who this guy was, the guard still demanded an invitation. Alan just smirked under his hood. He called out the guard, saying it was a huge shame Kyris judged guests purely by their looks. Listening from a distance, Bern was totally blown away by the mage calling them out. He thought about how wild it was to judge people by their clothes. But then it clicked. Alan wasn't just complaining for fun. The mage was actually looking for a totally valid excuse to skip out on Kyris. Alan turned his horse, announcing he would head back. Watching him walk away, Bern knew he absolutely could not let this massive opportunity slip. Reading his mind, his servant warned him. The king strictly banned anyone from leaving during the festival. With Alan riding further away from Kyris, Bern panicked. If they just stood there, the mage would be gone forever. Bern ordered Jan to do whatever it took to block the guards while he instantly spurred his horse straight toward the main gate. Ignoring Jan desperately shouting his name, the prince just pushed his horse to sprint even faster. The gate guards immediately started yelling, ordering the prince to halt his horse right there. Now watch this wild move. They yelled about the royal decree, but his horse just flawlessly leaped right over the soldiers and bolted. The guards were left completely stunned by that insane speed. Screaming at the top of their lungs, they announced the prince had escaped Kyris. Panic mode activated, they rushed to grab their horses and chase him. Jan was still completely frozen. He had zero clue how to actually help the prince here. Then he remembered Bern's crazy order to do the impossible and stop those guards. Yan hyped himself up. He was Prince Calian's loyal attendant, and his absolute duty was protecting his master no matter the massive cost. Stepping up bravely, he screamed for everyone to freeze. Yan loudly claimed that Duke Siegfried himself had authorized Calian to leave the gates. One guard snapped right back, demanding to know who dared to drop the mighty Duke's name. Then he untied his hair. Dramatic wind blowing, he finally revealed his true identity. He was Jan Siegfried, the eldest son of the Duke. A little while later, someone was having an absolute blast, just laughing their head off. Jan sat there looking incredibly embarrassed, while the guy beside him couldn't stop laughing. Flushing red, Yan muttered that it really wasn't anything cool. He finally snapped, trying to grab the attention of his father, the still laughing Duke. He just could not believe his son pulled such a genius move. Teasing him, the Duke joked that his kid went out just to babysit a little boy. Still smiling, the Duke officially declared that Yan had actually made a brilliant decision. Yan pushed back immediately, arguing that His Highness was going to completely ruin their political relationship with the king. But the Duke just casually waved it off, saying he wouldn't ask any questions. Yan was totally shocked by his father's super chill attitude. Repeating that he would stay out of it, Duke Siegfried quietly started calculating all the massive political implications. If the prince takes help from the Siegfried family, he will definitely start getting super paranoid about our motives. Letting him off the hook for this, it basically tells the entire world that our family is officially forming an alliance with the young prince. You and I know Brisson will hate this, but honestly, it will all just get swept under the rug. That was the Duke's final conclusion. Meanwhile, Prince Bern was still chasing down the mage, finally cornering Alan near a fountain. Alan casually spotted Bern. He smirked, noting the prince definitely was not here just to scold him about that missing VIP invitation. So the mage asked why the esteemed third Prince of Kyris was stalking a grumpy old man. Hearing that, Bern remembered a crazy rumor. Reaching the 7th magic circle actually makes you age backwards. Looking at him, that wild rumor was clearly true. Bern mentioned it was getting pretty late, asking if Alan was seriously just leaving. Alan replied with a metaphor. Trying to open a closed door, he found the threshold simply too high to step over. Bern was completely lost. Was that some hidden test? He only knew there was absolutely nothing he could do to help the guy. Bern shot back, saying Alan stared at a closed door when another was wide open for him. He straight up asked where the mage was hiding the invitation they originally gave him. Staring Alan down, Bern admitted he was blocking the wind and forgot to sweep the threshold. He honestly never expected those foolish guards to mess up so badly. The mage was totally taken aback by that tone. Was this young prince genuinely honest, or just ridiculously bold? A tiny smirk crept onto Alan's face. This prince was turning out to be pretty hilarious. Studying him closely, Alan remembered his first impression. Bern's intense eyes definitely did not belong to a normal 14-year-old kid. Then his eyes dropped to the prince's hand. He spotted something bizarre. And trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are jumping straight into the madness, Alan calls out to the prince, waiting for him to finish. Then he apologizes and grabs Bern's hand, pulling it close. Bern is completely lost. He tries asking what the heck Alan is actually doing, but the mage is already one step ahead. He blasts his magic, trying to force the hidden energy inside the prince to wake up. Instantly, Bern gets hit with that awful, familiar chest pain. The exact same agony that spikes whenever his own magic acts up. Alan's mana floods in, but Bern's internal energy violently shoves it back. A sudden explosion actually blasts the two apart. The horses freak out and rear back while Bern is left clutching his chest in pure agony. Then Alan drops a super cryptic line. He mutters, "Even with closed doors, the wind cannot be totally blocked." Bern instantly realizes the mage figured out his body's messed up state. Repeating the phrase, he asks, "The wind cannot be blocked." He openly admits the old guy is totally right. I mean, Bern literally cannot use mana at all. But in his head, Alan knows the real issue isn't the mana. He seriously wonders if the prince is actually clueless about the true cause. Staring right at Bern's fist, the mage figures it all out. Now pay close attention here. Alan realizes the kid is completely clueless about the real problem, so he stares at Bern, clenching his own fist. Get this. The Kyris royals treat mages like absolute garbage, despite having dragon blood, so the great mage Alan only came here to scam them. Yet somehow he ended up bumping into the young prince, following him to who knows where. Alan flat out asks why the prince wanted this meeting. Still gasping for air from the crazy explosion, Bern finally starts talking. He knows this high-level mage would sniff out a lie instantly, so he drops the act and gets totally honest. Hopping off his horse, Bern slowly walks right up to the mage and says he just wants to know his real name. Then the prince drops a bomb calmly, stating he believes his life is in immediate danger. Watching the kid, Alan thinks to himself, I already know this third prince's terrible situation. Everyone literally hates him. The guy is surrounded by deadly enemies. Boom, a magic barrier instantly pops up around them, totally freaking Bern out with how insanely fast it appeared. Alan hops off his horse like a ninja. Meanwhile, Bern is mind-blown, wondering if it's a silent spell since the mage cast it without saying a single word. Alan cuts to the chase and asks for his true goal. Do you just want to stop the assassins, Alan asks, or are you trying to completely destroy the root cause of the problem? He presses on. The prince bluntly replies that for now, he just wants to survive. This super grounded answer totally catches Alan off guard, but Bern adds that he absolutely wants to eliminate the true source of the problem too. He finishes by saying if he has to literally take the throne to make that happen, then he'll just become the king. Smiling in pure disbelief, Alan realizes the kid sees the royal throne as just a side quest, even though he's literally a dying prince right now. The prince who looks like Cispanian desperately needs my help to pull this off, Alan concludes. I know you and I are grinning right now. The mage is super hyped, he finds this hilarious and asks the prince to show what he's offering for a formal invitation. Without a single hesitation, the royal prince drops to his knees. He officially states his full name, Calian Reincarnation, and greets his new mentor. Alan Manassel smiles and fully accepts His Highness's bold invitation. Staring at the kneeling kid, Alan makes a firm decision. He is absolutely going to save this boy's life. The scene cuts over to Yan chatting with his dad. He nervously asks if his father is totally sure that nobody recognized his real identity. The Duke casually mentions he handled all the loose ends, telling Yan not to sweat it. Yan sighs, pointing out that if anyone recognized him, he couldn't stay at the palace. While the Duke keeps rambling about covering up Yan's identity, the kid suddenly remembers something important. Looking visibly stressed out, he asks about a girl named Leah. Mentioning her well-being instantly grabs his dad's attention, making the loud Duke shut up completely. The Duke explains that Leah is actually crushing it as the head of the Branch family. You know, the huge responsibility Yan totally ran away from. Standing up for a stretch, the Duke says Yan is always welcome back home. Then he lets out a huge sigh, admitting he thought he wouldn't see his son for years. Staring at the floor, Yan is super confused. He asks what his dad means since they're literally scheduled to meet again in 3 months. Duke Siegfried blinks in total surprise. He asks if Yan is actually planning to quit his job as the prince's loyal servant. Yan stays quiet, head bowed in deep thought. Finally, he softly mentions that he's turning 15 very soon. The Duke is genuinely shocked by this answer and just stares at the kid in silence. Then he calls out Yan's name, making the boy look up instantly. He asks if Yan remembers the famous Siegfried family nickname, and the kid nods, yes. So, what do you and I take from this? Before Yan can finish, his dad smiles proudly and reveals, we are the elephants of Kyris. Let's dive right into this wild manhwa. This family never bothered fighting for the throne simply because their insane power was already undisputed. The Duke finished explaining with a serious look. They were the apex predators, completely untouchable by any ordinary beast. Yan tried to ask why his old man was suddenly bringing this heavy stuff up but got completely cut off. His dad pulled him into a massive hug. He told Yan their family name held crazy weight and while holding him said to just go live his best life. Grabbing his father's arm, Yan was just overflowing with pure happiness hearing those words. Then his dad jokingly squeezed his neck, calling him a total brat for causing worry. Yan squirmed, begging him to stop the pain. Father and son just kept joking around together under that perfectly clear night sky. Snapping back to reality, Yan switched back to servant mode and formally called his dad Duke Siegfried. The Duke scoffed at the sudden formal title and told him to get lost. Yan just bowed respectfully, saying he would catch him later. Sitting quietly on the bench, the Duke just watched him walk away. He muttered to himself that Yan's ridiculous little tantrum basically proved he was a true Siegfried through and through. He thought back to the hall, remembering the prince radiating raw magic. Seriously, when did the kid get so insanely strong? Staring up at the massive full moon, the Duke couldn't help but wonder what the prince's actual endgame was. Now pay attention. Morning hits with a bright blue sky, and as some horses approach, everything completely shifts. A carriage rolled up and the crowd lost their minds. Was that crest real? 7 red flowers and a silver cane. One lady whispered to a guy that Alan Manassel's contract with Bern was finally over. The guy was stunned. What was Alan doing in Kyris? Though after what he went through wasn't leaving an obvious choice. Without the king, he'd be long gone. The woman asked if it was tied to that crazy rumor. He wondered if the gossip about Alan's son was actually true. Just then someone finally stepped out of the carriage. It was the legend himself, Alan Manassel, rocking a black and white fit with loose hair. Stepping down with a smirk, he figured his brand new disciple had set up a nice little welcome. He recalled the prince's weirdly specific demand to arrive exactly at 9 o'clock and to walk right through the open doors at that second. Alan thought to himself, if His Highness really wanted to pick a fight with the Brisson family, it wouldn't be easy. Bern was waiting to drop this mage on the nobles and completely wreck the political game. A man rushed over, totally shocked by the legendary mage's sudden drop-in. A group of vassals quickly announced that His Highness was eagerly waiting. Sipping tea with an attendant, the king demanded to know exactly what was just said. The king shared tea with the mage, questioning him endlessly about this sudden request for a place to crash. Just to be absolutely sure, the king asked again if he really wanted to settle down in Kyris. Super chill, the mage confirmed he definitely needed a spot. The king's mind raced, wondering if this request meant he'd actually fight Celica. Sure, the king desperately needed Alan's absurd firepower, but he never in a million years expected the guy to just volunteer himself. What was Alan's real angle here? Taking a calm sip of tea, the mage finally broke the silence. Alan casually mentioned that last night in the square he spotted a black cat with striking red eyes. Totally confused, the king just listened. Alan explained this cat was scary, smart, and he actually wanted to teach it. But the stray had no home. Shocked, the king straight up asked what he even planned to teach a literal cat. Alan smirked. Magic, obviously, plus he wanted to set up a cozy environment where his furry new student could actually thrive. To pull this off, Alan had to help out the homeowner while also getting his own new crib completely sorted. Crazy, right? The king was absolutely blown away that Alan already knew exactly what was happening. The king simply asked if Alan was truly capable of handling all of this single-handedly. Alan knew the loophole. By taking Calian as a disciple, the Brisson family couldn't block him from helping the prince level up. He confessed this whole crazy scheme was actually Prince Calian's idea. The king slapped his knee, jumped right up, and loudly declared he'd get them a place. Smiling to himself, Alan figured things were already a massive dumpster fire, so it literally couldn't get any worse. Sitting back down, the king admitted he was curious about one thing. He'd heard the kid was completely unremarkable. Not special, Alan scoffed internally. In his head, he knew even Calian's garbage health condition was unfortunately very, very special. Honestly, it was getting to where finding a single normal thing about the prince was basically impossible. The king heard the kid was terrified of horses. So why is Alan obsessed? Stick around, you're going to want to see this. Let's dive into this royal drama. The mage was totally stunned. This king literally relied on palace rumors to keep tabs on his sons. Alan completely cut him off. He straight up asked if the king even knew his own kid's condition. He didn't stop there, questioning if he understood his son's worth. The king shot him a serious glare. But Alan had his answer. The guy knew nothing. Alan dropped some truth. Sure, attention can be poison and isolation a cure, but let's be real, claiming you're too busy is just a pathetic excuse. The king was absolutely floored by this dude's insane level of disrespect. Trying to save face, he claimed he'd overlook Alan's wild arrogance, since it was just a teacher worrying about Calian. Walking right toward the door, the king scoffed. He said it was ridiculous to even explain, but he valued them. Especially Calian, his so-called precious son. He said this while grabbing the doorknob. He tried shutting the conversation down, but Alan just snapped his fingers. Boom, a silent spell locked them in, and the king absolutely panicked. Alan locked eyes with him and told him to quit the stalling act. The king freaked out, demanding to know why he was using magic here. Alan ignored him, listing Calian's symptoms. Now pay attention, this is where the clues drop. Dry lips, breathless lungs, and weirdly bluish skin. His clothes were a rushed mess. And since those outfits were tailored a month ago, the kid had lost serious weight. He literally couldn't stand up. Even with his eyes closed, the dizzy spells hit hard. All these terrifying facts had the king shaking. Alan warned him, keep playing the idle spectator and you will lose absolutely everything. Meanwhile, a maid walked up to Yan outside the prince's bedroom. It was almost lunch, and the prince hadn't even touched his morning tea. Yan grabbed the tray, promising to watch out for his coughs. Stepping inside the quiet room, he saw the prince still totally passed out. Looking exhausted and way too thin, Yan figured yesterday's events had really taken a massive toll on the kid. Just as Yan reached out to wake him, Alan materialized right behind him, asking if he was sleeping. Yan finally noticed the super mage standing there completely clueless about how the guy even got inside. Then reality hit. He freaked out, tossed the tea tray into the air, and scolded the sneaky mage. You and I both know this classic anime logic. Yan demands answers, and the mage literally blames the palace security. So you just teleported in because you lacked clearance, Yan snapped. The mage smirked. Nope, a spatial rift, which is way harder, proving his insane skills. Hearing this, Yan finally took a deep breath. He ordered Alan out since the prince was sick, but before he could finish, Alan leaned in. Don't you recognize me? Alan noted Yan had arrived in Rien years ago. Did you really think growing up would hide your true face? He smirked and called him Baby Elephant. Yan's jaw practically hit the floor. Yan's dad swore his disguise was flawless. Sweating bullets, Yan panicked, realizing his top-secret identity had been busted in record time. Right on cue, Prince Calian finally woke up, asking how long he had been asleep. Yan quickly told him about their unexpected guest. Pushing himself up, Calian asked who it was. Spotting Alan, he instantly called him teacher. Smiling, Alan tossed the royal kid a tiny red pouch. Calian undid the little knot to open it up, asking what was inside. He poured tiny round pellets into his palm. Alan told him to eat one daily. Is this medicine? Calian asked. Alan got serious, stating the prince was dealing with two issues. First, his mana control was a total disaster. Second, his body was dropping weight dangerously fast. Calian smirked, noting that the mage figured everything out perfectly without him saying a single word. Alan asked if he held the blessing's power. Calian nodded, saying it gave crazy healing and magic affinity. But he admitted that lately, even that legendary healing factor seemed totally gone. Thinking back to his injured hand, he asked Alan if something was wrong with his actual heart. Alan's face hardened. He asked if Calian never realized how bizarre that combination was. Calian just stared. The prince mentioned he thought the blessing boosted his heart, since that is literally where life and mana come from. Alan nodded in agreement. That crazy blessing truly did act as a massive buff to his heart. So, what do you and I take from this? The blessing never actually disappeared. So his heart was fine, and his mana wasn't blocked either. Confused, the prince asks what the real issue is. Alan just throws the question back at him. Listen to this theory. What if the legendary blessing didn't vanish, but is fighting something else entirely? Alan drops this bombshell. The young prince is completely caught off guard. He realizes the blessing's power is so drained that it can't even patch up tiny scratches right now. Freaking out, Bern immediately asks Alan if there's some kind of deadly poison inside him. Without that blessing, you would already be dead, the mage says, straight to his face. Absolutely terrified, the prince listens, as Alan explains how fighting off lethal poisons takes a massive toll on the body. The healing magic was pushed to the absolute limit. And to make things worse, Bern tried using mana. Because of that, his heart just completely shut down the mana. Bern falls silent thinking about this messed up body. The original plan was to assassinate Calian, but he was actually poisoned way before Bern even took over. This wasn't some last-minute scheme. Boiling with rage, Bern thinks to himself, why on earth would they publicly hang a poor kid who was already dying from poison? Alan instantly picks up on the young prince's furious aura. That kind of killing intent doesn't belong to a 14-year-old kid. Who exactly is this boy, Alan wonders. Breaking the silence, Bern points and says, that right there must be the antidote. Holding up a little pill from his bag, the wizard nods. He admits it was totally rushed, but he guarantees it will do the trick. Now pay close attention here. Bern grabs the pill, stares at Alan, and drops a crazy question. What if I swallow both the poison and the antidote at the same time? That wild idea completely stuns Alan. He warns him that even with the cure, swallowing poison too will only drag out the deadly effects. Bern coldly replies, that's enough for him. Shocked, Alan asks if he's seriously going to risk taking both, and if he already knows the culprit. Bern nods, saying he has a solid lead. Bern explains his morning tea is the absolute perfect weapon. He drinks it openly every single day, and literally nobody else ever shares a cup with him. Did the original Calian figure it out and start refusing the poisoned tea? Maybe that's the real reason he got murdered, Bern thinks. But since he took over this body, everything changed. Now he has absolutely zero clue how they might try to wipe him out next. He tells Alan they have to keep this a total secret until he finds out their new method. But the wizard isn't entirely convinced by that excuse. Bern admits that if he exposes the poisoned tea, Yan and the loyal servants would become instant targets, and he refuses to let them get hurt. The culprit has been poisoning him slowly for ages, feeling completely confident they won't ever get caught. Sighing, Alan randomly promises the baby elephant will be safe. Bern is super confused by that weird joke, but the wizard just tells him to drop it. Anyway, the wizard finally agrees to play along, then asks the young prince what his next big move is. Bern suddenly remembers an old memory. A guy calling him a fool, saying that to steal an enemy's trump card you gotta bait them with something first. Those are the exact moments he vividly remembers his dad. So Bern asks Alan to sneak him out of the palace early tomorrow. Cut to the very next morning and someone is already screaming. You and I both know drama is coming. They're violently demanding Prince Franz wake up, bursting right through his bedroom door in a total frenzy. The panicked servants trying to wake him are immediately kicked out by the furious person who just stormed in. She aggressively rips back the heavy curtains from Franz's fancy bed. It's the queen herself. She snaps at him, saying he's already way too late to prep for his afternoon duties. Franz is just sitting there shirtless, looking completely wrecked. The queen is absolutely disgusted by the massive stench of booze filling the room. She yells, asking if he's still a mess after being strictly banned from drinking before the big plaza ceremony. Completely unfazed, Franz just grabs his water glass and asks why she's even bothering him right now. He tells her to just spill it and leave, which instantly pisses the queen off so badly she bites her lip. She drops the news that Calian just scored an epic mentor, the legendary 7th Circle mage Alan Manassel. While Franz finishes his water, she warns him that the noble aristocrats are already changing sides. Looking bored out of his mind, the second prince asks why he should even care. The queen marches right up to him, glaring daggers, and screams at him not to waste her massive investments. She fiercely orders him to get dressed immediately. Everyone is going to be watching you today, she warns him. You better not disappoint me again. Then she finally storms right out of his room. Franz is absolutely boiling with rage. In pure frustration, he violently smashes his glass straight into the floor. So what do you and I take from this mess? Even with blood dripping from his hand, Franz just snarls at everyone to get out. Let's dive right back into the madness. Our guy is screaming to retreat while Calian's red-eyed smiling face haunts his mind. The second prince, absolutely fuming. Meanwhile, the royal family is throwing a massive parade, soaking up all the cheers for the king. The king happily waves back. Inside the carriage, though, the queen just coldly stares down at the wildly excited crowd. Right behind them, looking ridiculously elegant, ride the three princes. A kid on his dad's shoulders goes crazy seeing them. His dad points out that the prince riding all the way in the back is the real star of the show. Yep, it is Prince Calian. Dripped out in red gear that completely makes his eyes pop. Leading his horse, Calian's super anxious servant looks back and asks a quick question, totally stressed about the prince's health today. He sighs in relief, mentioning that Calian looks 1,000,000 times better than yesterday. Flashing a smooth smile, the prince brushes it off, claiming he just got some good sleep. In reality, he knows it is because he downed that antidote yesterday. The stabbing pain in his chest is basically gone. The servant nervously lists the packed schedule, the parade riding, then a whole ball. Calian just laughs, saying the guy panics way too much. He reassures him that he is completely fine and can easily handle every single event today. Suddenly, a sketchy guy in a hood pops up in the crowd, hiding out in a dark alleyway. Calian spots the guy and immediately locks in. He squints, trying to figure out who these sketchy strangers actually are. Then it hits him. He remembers his past life, the brutal war, and the exact guy who saved him. Watch closely here because things just got crazy. The guy in the alley is Kyris. The prince is absolutely stunned. It is definitely him. Even his horse Raven senses the guy right there. Calian's mind starts racing, wondering why Kyris is in this kingdom. The horse straight up tries to walk toward him, but the servant yanks the reins hard, keeping them on the main road. Calian quickly gives the order to keep moving. The hooded group turns away to leave, leaving the servant totally confused about what just happened over there. Raven just stares as they vanish. Calian gently pets his massive horse to calm him down, smiling and whispering, "You felt his energy too, right? But we seriously cannot go over there right now," he mutters as they disappear. Calian flashes back to the day he died. He vividly remembers Kyris smiling right as he sacrificed his own life for him. Back at the red carpet parade, some fancy noble walks right up to greet the royals. Enter Melfir Polun, the wealthy Emporium boss. He is hosting a massive horse show today instead of the Brisson family. Calian rolls his eyes, thinking this is completely pointless. This exact stupid event dragged him into a massive political headache before. In his past life, Prince Randell got horribly injured here, and Baron Paulin was literally hanged the exact same day. Meanwhile, a clueless Paulin happily guides the royals inside. He shows them to these super fancy seats he custom prepared. "You and I already know what is coming, right?" Calian spots the giant chandelier, the exact one that crushes Prince Randell. Calian is blown away. How did the guards miss something this massive, especially with the king and papal knights standing right there? Thinking of knights reminds him of that incredibly annoying commander. Calian just smirks, hatching a little plan. While Paulin keeps talking, Calian actually debates whether he should let this guy survive today. He knows a tryhard like Polun is desperate to impress the king. His servant whispers to just call if he needs anything at all. Calian casually mentions that the giant chandelier above feels extremely unsafe. Turning his back to leave, he tells Polun to go inspect it. Polun stands there, completely baffled by the weird demand. Staring up at the chandelier, Polun is totally confused. Then the show kicks off. Expert riders and horses start doing crazy flips. Clasping his hands nervously, someone desperately hopes that this kind of massive glory will finally be his. It is Polun, practically shaking with joy near the king. He worked way too hard, and absolutely refuses to fail today. But something behind him grabs his attention. It is Prince Calian, looking bored out of his mind watching the show. Remembering the prince's weird warning, Polun actually goes to check the ropes. Grabbing the ropes, Polun freezes in pure terror. The thick rope is completely frayed, literally seconds away from violently snapping. If the prince had not said a single word, that thing drops, someone dies, and Polun gets executed on the spot. Staring at the prince in shock, Polun cannot figure out how on earth he knew about the broken rope. He realizes the prince is insanely sharp, easily reading the room and manipulating things perfectly in his favor. So what do you and I take from this? Polun is completely clueless about why the Brisson family wants him dead. Alright, stick with me here. Polun freezes up when he notices the second prince, Plants, glaring absolute daggers at him. Plants keeps that cold, dead stare. He tells the merchant to know his absolute place, straight up calling him a little insect. Down below, the announcer is having the time of his life. But up in the royal VIP box, things are about to get incredibly awkward. Plants announces that the stench of Calian's mother's filthy blood makes him completely sick. Every single person hears this, their jaws just hitting the floor. Even the king snaps his head around, and he usually ignores the princes. Meanwhile, the third Prince Calian looks totally crushed by that brutal insult. But honestly, Calian flashes a hidden wicked smirk. Plants just dropped that bomb at the worst possible time. Calian never thought his brother could actually be this useful. The king just turns away, leaving Queen Sealike to clean up this massive royal mess herself. Hiding behind her fancy fan, Sealike is absolutely seething. She had literally just warned Plants about acting up like this. She shoots him a death glare, but Prince Plants, he looks completely chilled out about the whole thing. That totally rattles the queen. Did he do this on purpose? Out of every day possible, why ruin things today? Gossip spreads like wildfire. Plants just dropped completely unacceptable insults right in front of the king. The nobles start panicking. They can't publicly back Plants anymore, especially since Calian already secured that powerful mage's loyalty. Everyone realizes Calian might actually become the next king. With stakes this high, the nobles know they cannot just sit back and watch. Now pay close attention. The deadline to pick sides is rushing in even as the event wraps up peacefully. Prince Randall somehow smoothed things over, and shockingly, the king did not even punish Plants for that massive disrespect. Calian realizes everything is falling right into his lap. Yet Queen Silik looks suspiciously calm for someone whose master plan just imploded. Staring at the queen, Calian starts wondering if she's actually the real mastermind behind all this chaos. Suddenly, memories from his past life hit him hard. A guy asks his opinion on the deadly accident Calian just managed to prevent. Back then, Bern replied, it was definitely a setup to assassinate one of the three princes. What other possible motive was there? The man stays silent. That guy was actually his older brother who dragged him there just to make a high-stakes bet. Bern admits he has lost so much he doesn't even know his total debt anymore. But mid-chess game, his brother drops a major hint. He asks Bern if that quote-unquote accident looked totally rigged, basically screaming to everyone that the royals were the real targets. The Melpire Guild was the second biggest powerhouse in Kyris. So for Lenin Brisson, the guy running the #1 guild wiping Melpire off the map would be an absolute jackpot. Snapping back to reality, Calian asks his loyal servant what the Poland Guild's most profitable business actually is. Yen says they are famous for their massive diamond mines. Bingo. With Poland dead, the Brisson family could swoop in and steal the entire diamond monopoly. Originally, Calian just wanted to save Paulun and walk away. You and I both know he's not stopping there. Lenin's going down. Meanwhile, Paulun is shaking in pure terror somewhere. Calian tells Yan to completely wipe his schedule for the rest of the day. This shocks his servant because skipping the royal ball is totally forbidden. So Calian acts super traumatized by Plance's brutal insult just to manipulate his servant into agreeing. He claims his broken heart is why he cannot attend today's parties. Meanwhile, the palace staff is frantically cleaning up to keep the party going. Back in his private chambers, the king looks seriously stressed. He is totally weighed down by the insane drama that just went down. He suddenly remembers the mage's dark warning. If he keeps acting like this, losing Calian will just be the first of many devastating tragedies. Plance's toxic insult echoes in his head again, that disgusting comment about the stench of Calian's mother's dirty blood. A flood of painful memories hits the king, a beautiful red-haired woman gently calling out his real name. It's Calian's mother, Rumain's former wife, lying right on her deathbed. But suddenly someone bursts into the room, snapping the king back to reality. A nervous servant announces that the queen demands an immediate audience. Without even waiting, the queen struts right in and marches toward the king. A nearby maid quickly grabs a cup, offering to brew some fresh tea. The queen immediately asks if the king had secret guests, sounding annoyed that nobody bothered to tell her. The king just raises a hand, waving away the maid and the tea. He says the queen won't be staying long anyway, absolutely ticking her off. King Rumain coldly asks why Silik even bothered showing up here. Taking a seat, Silik announces that House Brisson will take the blame for the chaos. Honestly, it's shocking she's swallowing her pride over Plance's massive screw-up. She's clearly doing whatever it takes to save her son's reputation. The king just rubs his chin, highly skeptical about this whole responsibility thing. We both see it right, still insolent as ever. Let's jump right back in. Responding to the king, Silike actually admits the parade was incredibly impressive. Then she casually asks if Baron Paulin doesn't deserve a massive reward for organizing the whole thing. The king fired back, saying she clearly thought long and hard about this. Covering her face with her fan again, Silike smoothly states she plans to hand over House Brisson's exclusive supplier rights for the royal stables directly to him. Smiling under that fan, she leaves the king totally speechless. Would she seriously just surrender such a ridiculously profitable investment? Then it clicks. He remembers Manasal warning him the queen already knew she had to sacrifice something big just for damage control. Still, she definitely wasn't desperate enough to pull back the nights she sneaked into the palace. The mage had explained she would pitch what she considered a perfectly fair reward. Once she does, just show her the king is willing to turn a blind eye. That was Manasil's solid advice. Looking way more relaxed now, the king crosses his legs. Tonight, Plants and I will enter the ballroom together, he boldly declares. The queen is totally caught off guard, but honestly, absolutely thrilled. Flashing a genuine smile, she tells the king her son will be incredibly happy with this gesture. Deal made. Armain and Plants walk into the ballroom side by side, officially naming Baron Paulun the exclusive new supplier for the royal stables. Everyone in there knows Silike orchestrated this just to save her son's reputation. House Brisson taking an economic hit like this, completely unthinkable before today. She was literally paying the bill for Plance's massive mistake. This proves Calian is finally a huge threat, forcing the queen to actually play defense. Watch closely now. Inside his room, Calian and Ian are completely stunned. Staring at a literal mountain of gifts, Calian jokes about how fast these nobles switch sides when the wind changes. Ian asks what to do with all this loot. Honestly, the prince is just loving the fact that plants and the Brissons are losing power. Calian says he refuses to let backstabbers buy their way into his inner circle. Return everything, well, everything except the gifts from Paulun and the Arcana Enclave. Heading for the door, he casually tells them to make sure they write down a list of every single sender. But right as he's leaving, one specific box catches Calian's eye. It's a massive, crazy expensive necklace covered entirely in brilliant red gems. The sheer flex of it shocks the prince and every vassal in the room. Calian looks at it. A horse collar, that is incredibly specific. He immediately asks Ian if he leaked any details about his horse. Ian swears he only mentioned that the prince liked his horse Raven. This gift is just wildly unexpected. You and I know exactly what this is. A horse jewel, but nothing for the master. He's definitely being tested. If he accepts this collar, the sender officially settles their massive life debt. They just send a second treasure for him later and call it even. Smirking, the young prince decides there's no way he's letting them off the hook that easily. A simple jewel won't cut it. Calian orders his servant to appraise the necklace's value and just send cold hard cash straight to Paulun instead. Ian asks if they're buying it outright. The prince chuckles. They aren't buying it because an item like this is completely unique. Pointing right at a weird carnivorous plant, Calian jokes that this one definitely wins the prize for originality. Ian grabs the tag to check the sender. Straight from the Arcana Enclave. Mind blown. The prince laughs about sorcerers and their bizarre aesthetic taste. Ian hands him a note mentioning the plant is super rare and needs special instructions. It's a magical flower that literally spreads glowing pollen after it dies. Herbologists absolutely love it. At first, the prince is totally clueless about why they sent it, but suddenly it clicks. A massive smirk spreads across his face. He completely understands now. Confused, his servant asks if they should just ship it back to the Enclave. Nope, we are keeping it, Calian declares. As the maid quietly tidies up his room, you can practically see the gears turning in his head. Out of nowhere, Ian shouts, making the maid jump in surprise. In the background, Ian is panicking, asking if everything is okay. The prince calmly brushes it off, saying a cup just slipped right out of his hand. The teacup had completely shattered, spilling everything across the floor. Ian immediately points a maid over to clean up the wet mess. While she's wiping down the prince's clothes, Calian notices the splashed tea actually hit the magical flower. The petals are soaking in it. Sweeping up the glass, Ian nervously asks if the tea will kill the plant. Calian casually replies, loud enough for everyone, that it's fine, the tea isn't poison. Those exact words completely freeze the maid. He then orders them to leave the pot right there, acting like he already loves it. Cut to two men riding horses, one sincerely thanking the other for taking time out of his absolutely packed schedule. It's our cunning prince and the mage. The mage laughs, saying he couldn't refuse since this kid is literally risking his life. He points out Calian looks way happier out here than trapped inside that palace. Calian agrees. He almost slips up, but smoothly claims he's just looking for some fun. Trust me, you're gonna want to see what his idea of fun is. Stick with me here. He had to remember he was Calian now, not Bern. He asked the mage if the king actually okayed this little field trip. The mage casually replied that his majesty was probably receiving the request right now. Bern was not surprised at all. He basically said he felt just as guilty. He remembered sneaking away from Yan to follow the mage, who playfully called the prince his apprentice. Smiling, the prince took that as a compliment. Manassel then asked if he was taking his antidote. Bern gave the mage a dead serious look and confirmed that he absolutely was. He took a dose earlier and felt great. Meanwhile, the poisoner was probably sweating bullets by now. Everything would perfectly fall into place once they walked straight into the trap. The mage admired his cleverness, teasing that maybe the prince never even needed his help, but the prince smiled and denied it. He claimed none of this wild plan would work without that very interesting gift the mage had sent. Reaching a specific spot in the kingdom, they finally stopped their horses. The mage turned his horse completely around. He announced this was as far as he was willing to go. He debated tagging along with his new apprentice, but decided to let the kid fly solo. Pulling his hood low, the prince smirked, saying he knew the mage would totally understand. Manassel mentioned a magic shop on Tanya Street, telling the prince to meet him there once the job was done. Spurring his horse, the prince promised to meet up and wished them both luck before they rode off. Now pay attention here. A huge blacksmith finishes a blade. The prince raises it, his piercing red eye reflecting right off the cold steel. Riding away with his new gear, he figured it would do the trick. He sheathed the weapon, deciding it was totally fine until his real custom order was ready. Standing in a shady alley just past the shop, he knew his next major step required one thing: solid information. You see, Secretia ran a massive underground network to gather global intel, but they weren't just simple spies. Every single agent survived brutal training to become an elite assassin, and the guy who built this deadly network, King Devlon, Bern's father from his past life. Hiding his face deep in his hood, he walked down the alley and spotted two guys looking completely wasted. He was finally approaching the Pigeon Post Center right on Nasha Street. Bern knew exactly how deadly these assassins were because he literally trained them. As the drunks walked past, he quickly fixed his hood, because right now he was a Prince of Kyris. If they spotted him, kidnapping or worse, black hair and glowing red eyes are basically a walking target. Bern knew staying low-key was vital, so he quietly slipped inside. I know what you're thinking, a post center, but as he walked in, this two-story bird paradise was way bigger than expected. A young worker walked up asking if he needed a carrier pigeon. The prince coolly said no. Bern pointed out the birds weren't even awake yet, making the attendant stare. The guy claimed they were just sleepy. The prince noted they looked completely exhausted from a massive journey. Checking out a bird with a strange key mark on its back, Bern commented that this was their resting spot. The worker aggressively demanded to know why he was there. Bern smoothly replied he was looking for bird food. The guy said he came to the right place and attacked him in a flash. The attendant's blade instantly sliced right through the prince's hood. Holding a dagger right at Bern's neck, the man hissed he hadn't sold any pigeons lately. Bern realized this guy was a serious threat, and Calian's weak body definitely wasn't ready. Pushing the dagger down with his bare hand, the prince agreed. Obviously no sales since he just got to this kingdom. The guy stared back with cold, dead eyes. Here birds meant spies and birdseed meant intel. Secretion spies hid their identities from everyone, even allies, so if captured, the mission stays completely safe. The man demanded to know whose spy he was. The prince just smirked confidently. He knew they had zero way of checking his story, even using his dad's name, Devlan, to fake being a Secretion spy. So what do we make of this? He drops Devlin's name, leaving the assassin completely stunned. Stick with me, we are watching Calian become the first Secretion prince to spy on his kingdom. Playing it cool, Bern says that since that is settled, he needs some fresh intel after just leaving the nest. The shady guy responds by cracking open a hidden passage. He gestures for the young prince to follow right behind him. Bern scans the tunnel as the guy says they will meet here, often call him White Falcon. The young prince fires back that he can call him Red Swan. The guy smirks, claiming he will definitely remember that alias. They step into this massive hidden library. Falcon asks what exactly he needs. Bern does not waste time, he wants one specific item and a solid piece of information. Falcon drops the price tag 8 florins paid up front. Naturally, our prince is caught a little off guard by that. Bern frowns. The guy does not even know what intel he wants yet. Is this dude just trying to play mind games with him? Reading his mind, Falcon casually drops that they charge a flat rate for everything anyway. He then literally tosses the prince his requested item and the paper intel. Unfolding the paper, Bern skims the details. He asks Falcon if this location is actually correct. Falcon does not blink. It is the absolute only spot matching his crazy request. The prince gives a quick thanks. But right as Bern turns to leave, Falcon warns him to watch his back. That makes Bern pause. Since when does a shady underground informant care about anyone else making it out alive? Falcon points out the destination is insanely dangerous. Opening the door, our prince can only nod in total agreement. You and I know Bern is thinking the exact same thing. White Falcon is the most dangerous threat in the room. The prince hits the road again, tracking down his target. But right near the bridge, he has to cross a huge crowd blocks the way. Wondering what is going on, Bern tries sneaking past them. Suddenly his horse completely freaks out over something unseen. He struggles to calm the panicked horse down. Right then, an older guy from the crowd walks over to our prince. He gently explains the dead are taking their absolute final journey. He politely asks the young guy to wait just a minute, assuming he is not rushing. Bern is confused for a second. Journey of the dead, then he glances at the river and spots the beautiful tragic farewell ceremony. Jumping off his horse, the prince agrees to hold up out of total respect for the departed. Every single kingdom has its own unique way of saying goodbye to the dead. The Kyrisians, they actually believe departed souls float away on bright red flowers down the river. Legend says crossing a bridge, while those flowers pass by, diverts souls off their correct path. Back home in Secretia, they always laid out gorgeous Sinistar flowers to mourn their losses. Sinistar petals die in the sun, then bloom bright purple at night. It is a harsh reminder that the living and dead stay totally separated just like day and night. This specific ritual gives Secretians the closure they desperately need to say their final goodbyes. Bern just stands there, patiently waiting for the ritual to end. Deep in thought, Prince Bern wonders if his own brother placed a Sinistar on his grave, or if he activated the axis of time first. Suddenly, a crazy realization hits him. What if he himself is just a lost soul on the wrong path? The stranger thanks the prince for holding up, letting him know the road is clear to cross. Our young prince just stares back quietly, completely lost in his own wild thoughts. Hopping back on his horse, he shakes it off. The past is dead anyway. He is a Prince of Kyris now. Pulling back his hood, the prince respectfully tells the man the souls can travel easily now, wishing them absolute peace on their journey. The man physically gasps, completely shocked by the prince's face. Meanwhile, our boy just rides off across the bridge like nothing happened. While he stares blankly at the leaving prince, a woman calls him back to finish the funeral. She asks what is wrong, but he brushes it off. That man right there is Arson, the powerful High Magistrate of Valkenham. Watch closely, this is the exact same guy who literally caused Bern to die back when he ruled Secretia. Arson drops his hood, mumbling to his friend that the kid seemed like a pretty decent guy. Meanwhile, Bern realizes every single shop he rides past is randomly named Cispanian. Pulling up to a tavern, also called Cispanian, Bern just sighs. He mutters that this obsession is absolutely unbelievable. Turns out all those old spies claiming Kyris was swarming with wild Cispanian followers were completely right. Bern pushes into the noisy tavern. The host instantly greets him, offering to grab a decent table. The young prince waves him off, no need. He simply points straight up, claiming he has urgent business on the 4th floor. The host completely freezes up. Choking on his own words, he quickly nods and throws open the VIP door for our prince. The nervous guy leads the way upstairs with the prince shadowing him. Opening the final door, he nervously wishes him a pleasant evening. Calian steps inside the empty room. Trust me, you want to see this. He spotted a weird coat rack on the wall. That's when Calian remembered the pricey intel he bought from the White Falcon. Stick with me. We are heading straight into the shadiest underground hub in the entire royal capital. The prince grabbed the rack, twisted it left, and click. A hidden door slid open right beside it exactly as planned. The secret password, asking to hit the 4th floor of a building that only had 2. Classic mafia logic. The whole upstairs was just a fake front for a massive secret underground basement. Walking down, he knew the low-stakes casino on the 3rd floor wasn't his real target. He wanted the heavy stuff. He needed what was buried way deeper. Reaching the door, he pushed it open. Boom. Pure chaos. Guys absolutely destroying each other in a massive fighting ring surrounded by a screaming crowd. This brutal pit, exactly where our prince wanted to be. The wild crowd screamed for the fighters to smash each other harder. They had big money riding on who would hit more brutally. The announcer screamed out the winner. Another flawless victory for Gerard the Affectionate. Tickets coming up soon, the announcer yelled. If you bet on white, go grab your hard-earned cash. The loser was dragged away like trash while the angry mob cursed him into oblivion. Hanging in the back, Calian choked on the awful smell. Watching the madness, he realized everyone here had completely lost their minds. Seriously, what a gross scene. Now watch closely because things start getting interesting. A sketchy guy walks up demanding the entry fee. Calian just pays up, getting instantly escorted to table 27 by an attendant. A stunning blue-haired girl in a bright red dress walked right up to him. Grabbing his arm, she quietly signaled him to follow. Calian wondered if she was mute. Then she turned her head, and his eyes went wide. Her ear was completely mutilated. Brutal. Yeah, they definitely aren't wearing these flashy outfits by choice, he realized. He spotted the thick tracking collars on their necks. Total, absolute surveillance. This place was basically a twisted prison. The girl suddenly nudged him, pointing from him to a tray. She was asking if he wanted to play. Calian dug into his pocket. Might as well play the game right. I will play along until I get exactly what I need, he smirked, dropping his cash right onto the black side. The rules in this dump were stupidly simple. Bet on a fighter and the winner doubles their money. Drop 3 coins, walk away with 6. 6 becomes 12, and it snowballs fast. Suddenly, the announcer called the winner of the 10th brutal match. Panther of the Steel Legs. Once again, he yelled that tickets were coming right up. Everyone who bet on black, step right up and grab your cash. The whole room gasped. His 3 measly coins had multiplied into 1,536. People stared at the mountain of cash, whispering crazily. I know what you are thinking. He wants the cash, right? Nope. He is waiting for the final fight. 4 times the payout. That is right, the main event you have all been waiting for, the announcer roared. On the white side, Sean the Raging Hammer, and on black, the totally stubborn challenger. Calian's eyes lit up in total shock when he saw the black side fighter. Flashback time. Calian remembered this exact guy saying he was an arena slave forced to kill for cash until his sister passed away, completely altering his fate. Ladies and gents, here he is, the announcer screamed, while the challenger calmly warmed up for the bloodbath. Want to be a knight, Kyrie? A voice asked. Hand on his chest, he answered back. Not a knight, my prince. I will be your sword. I just want to be your weapon. Calian recalled his past life's final moments, telling this loyal man to grab his blade and fight to the end. Back in the present, Kyrie stepped up. The announcer hyped him as the demonic eye. Without hesitating, Calian shoved his massive pile of coins forward. I am betting everything on black, he yelled out. The poor attendant froze. The whole room absolutely lost their minds that he just went all in on this guy. Was he completely stupid or just totally insane? Calian just smiled. He knew exactly what was about to happen. The announcer mocked. 0 wins. Kyrie has never won a single match. Can he actually change his pathetic fate today? You and I know he is playing chess, but this random guy actually asked if he is seriously throwing his cash away. A tall blonde dude sitting just ahead spun around to look at him like he was crazy. Change your bet, man. That loser has literally never won, the guy warned. Calian completely ignored him, turning to the girl. Have you counted my chips yet? Stick with me here. He locked his bet on the black side, asking her to double-check it. Annoyed, the guy next to him muttered a warning. I mean, it wasn't his cash on the line anyway. The announcer hyped the crowd. Raging Hammer almost never lets anyone walk out in one piece. As the entire arena roared, Kyrie locked eyes with the rookie who just bet his life savings. Warming up, his massive opponent laughed. He bragged that another dumb bettor was going broke because this little mongrel wouldn't just quit. The bell rang. Before those heavy chains even hit the dirt, the giant launched himself straight at Kyrie like an absolute freight train. Raging Hammer unleashed a brutal flurry of strikes, forcing Kyrie to cover up his head. While he was guarding, a nasty hook came from the left. But Kyrie deflected that shot perfectly, staying in the game. Mocking his speed, Hammer snapped a ruthless kick right into Kyrie's gut. The impact sent him flying, coughing up some serious strawberry juice. The crowd went wild, screaming for a brutal knockout. Up in the stands, Bern slammed his fist on the table in pure disbelief. Furious Bern realized something terrible. Without his sword, Kyrie was basically just a living punching bag. This should have been a cakewalk. Why on earth was he getting destroyed? Kyrie finally threw a punch, but he was way too slow, practically begging for more insults. Hammer countered with a devastating hook, telling him to just die already. The giant rained down relentless blows, declaring this was game over. Now pay attention here, because right as Hammer readied the final blow, Bern jumped up. Screaming at the top of his lungs, Bern finally caught his eye and yelled to drop his shoulder. Milliseconds before the hit connected, Kyrie heard the wild command, totally confused by it. Still trusting the shout, he dropped his shoulder just in time, completely ducking that monstrous death punch. Staying low, he coiled up like a spring. Kyrie charged up his fist for a nasty counter. Bern grinned, watching his crazy advice actually work. Then boom, Kyrie buried an absolute rocket of a punch deep into Hammer's gut. He didn't stop there. Kyrie unleashed an endless combo, not even breathing hard. With one final brutal uppercut to the jaw, teeth went flying. The unstoppable Raging Hammer crashed onto the canvas, completely knocked out cold. The whole arena went dead silent. Literally nobody saw this massive upset coming. You and I both thought he was toast, right? Well, he just actually flat out destroyed the undisputed champ. The announcer finally called it. Kyrie wins. Meanwhile, the stands erupted in pure rage since everyone bet on the giant. Glancing up, Kyrie spotted his impromptu coach. The young Prince Bern was smiling like a proud dad over the epic comeback. But before the celebration could even start, some shady guy tapped his shoulder and told him to follow along. Bern quickly zeroed in on this new guy, a tall, heavily built brute with dark hair looking for trouble. The goon claimed his boss wanted a chat, so Kyrie casually followed him straight into a sketchy private room. Chilling on a sofa, the boss clapped, praising how this kid flipped 3 simple coins into a total fortune. Meanwhile, the massive goon locked down the exit. While the guard slowly unsheathed a blade, the boss kept drooling over that massive pile of prize money. Flashing a greedy, gold-toothed grin, he warned that a little kid shouldn't carry that much cash around. Hearing this, Bern just smirked. Bern sighed, calling out the guy's total lack of manners, trying to rob them without even negotiating. Classic rookie mistake. Furious, the boss barked at Bern to drop his hood. He wanted a clear look before smashing his face in. Grabbing the fabric, Bern politely asked if he was really sure about this. He warned that this hood was their only safety net. But the boss just laughed, signaling his heavy muscle to go rip it off anyway. 2 massive thugs boxed the prince in. One guy actually reached out, taunting him not to be so shy. They just wanted a peek at that mysterious hidden face. Too bad that grabby hand got instantly pinned by a razor-sharp dagger. Flipping his blade, Bern mocked the bleeding thug. Shouldn't underground tough guys be way faster than this? Zero survival instinct. Sweating bullets over those crazy knife skills, the boss suddenly claimed he needed time to gather their winnings. Bern just laughed, keep your dirty gold. Instead, he was walking out of there with Kyrie pointing his dagger straight ahead. The boss gritted his teeth, arguing his master would be furious since this kid was just becoming their cash cow. So what do you and I make of this? The boss actually thought having the numerical advantage mattered against a trained prince with a dagger. Huge mistake. Stick with me. Bern kept his dagger locked on that chief. The stubborn boss refused to hand Kyrie over, but then an absolute blur of motion flew straight at his face. Slice. The table and his pants were instantly split. Bern smirked, keep the gold, and your pathetic life. Dripping with pure mana dagger in hand, Bern casually asked if he finally had his full attention. Absolutely terrified, the chief choked out. Was that a sword aura? Sweating bullets, he ordered a lackey to run and bring Kyrie immediately. Calian really hoped he wouldn't need to flex that hard again. Why? Because his frail body couldn't handle that insane aura for long. Soon the sweating lackey rushed back in, panicking about a huge problem. Still rocking those slashed pants, the furious chief demanded an explanation. Kyrie refused to leave Hina behind. Hearing that name, it instantly sparked an old memory inside Calian's head. A flashback hit. In his past life, Kyrie told him a heartbreaking truth. His sister had chosen death when he was forced to leave. The crushing guilt of failing her remained. Calian patted the chief's shoulder. He knew exactly what to do. Watch closely now, the desperate chief screamed to fetch the girl too. Nope, Calian wanted to grab her himself. The chief promised absolute safe passage, but the prince just stood there holding his hand out expectantly. The clueless boss stared at that outstretched hand, completely confused. With a total troll smile, Calian demanded his 3 florins back plus the damn entrance fee. Cut to outside, Calian waited with his horse, while Kiri and a visibly terrified Hina stood nervously in the back, totally lost. Hugging Hina tightly to protect her, Kyrie genuinely thanked Calian for busting them out of that hellhole. Calian stayed silent. He just watched them from the corner of his eye. As Kyrie questioned why this stranger was even helping them, something suddenly zipped through the air. In a flash, Calian draped his heavy coat over Hina. Relax, he told them. They could finally drop their guard around him. He meant absolutely zero harm. But without the hood hiding his face, Kiri completely froze in absolute shock. He instantly recognized Prince Calian. Bowing his head fast, he frantically apologized for not realizing his royal identity way sooner. Calian just placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Keep your head up, he said. No need for formal bowing around here. Penniless half-elf siblings on the streets. Calian knew exactly the kind of brutal hell they'd survived. Because in his past life, Kyrie couldn't save his sister. You leave your shoulders wide open, a super classic rookie mistake for anyone just picking up a sword. Do you want to be a knight? The prince asked. But Kyrie's answer was totally different. No knight dreams, he just wanted to be a blade strong enough to protect everyone. That raw answer totally surprised the prince. I know what you're thinking. Calian tossed him a sword, saying he'd have to be his shield to become that blade. That was the one strict rule for Calian's training. Once Kyrie made his final choice, he just had to come find him. But deep down, Calian felt it was the bare minimum to repay his loyal old friend. The mage asks why the prince's weapon is sitting there. Completely baffled, Calian admits it definitely shouldn't be. Suddenly, the blade floats into the air, making him jump. Then it shoots straight for his chest. With the blade inches away, Calian knows dodging is impossible. And the mage, just watching with his arms crossed. But the mage simply points out that despite his fragile body, Calian reacted crazy fast. Our prince actually dodged by using aura on his own blade. Before the flying dagger hits the ground, it zooms back up. The mage explains it is a rare artifact made by Cispanian. It literally copies whatever hidden weapons the opponent has on them, the mage notes, grabbing the hilt. The intense warning, wouldn't you say, the mage asks. The prince is gasping for air. Using mana in this body hurts like crazy. Calian realizes it was just a test and he totally overreacted. The mage smirks, asking how he could overreact when he supposedly doesn't even know how to hold a sword. Calian just sits there on the sofa, clutching his chest, still trying to catch his breath. Now pay attention, here is where it gets juicy. The mage touches his shoulder, recalling their first meeting. It hadn't gone well at all, but he noticed things were slowly getting super weird. He brings up some secret chats he had with the king, where the king noted that the nobles were totally shocked by Calian's massive change. Plus, even the queen said that after getting poisoned, he showed pure survival instinct instead of any fear. That kind of vibe only comes from someone who has already spilled a ton of blood. On top of all that, the mage already knew trouble was brewing right at the cavalry show. He straight up asks the prince to explain everything. Thanks to the healing magic speeding up his recovery, Calian feels way better fast. While recovering, Bern wonders if the mage is suspicious. But nope, he realizes the guy is just trying to build some actual trust. Slamming his hand on the table, he drops the bomb. He isn't Calian. His real name, Bern Secretia. The two sit face to face. The mage asks the heavy question, is the real Prince Calian actually dead? Bern shakes his head, saying it is not exactly like that. At first he had his doubts, but now he is absolutely positive. Calian is still alive because he feels his lingering presence. The mage thinks back to their very first meeting, remembering what Calian told him that the throne wasn't his goal. He asks Bern what his real endgame is. Cool as ice, Bern says he just wants to stop wars. He has no clue why Kalis wants the axis of time, but he's terrified that if the root cause isn't fixed, history will just repeat itself. So he desperately needs to dig up the truth behind everything. Mage calmly asks if this mission is for Chase the rightful heir, or just for his own selfish goals as Bern. Totally confused, Bern asks him what on earth he means by that. I know what you're thinking, but this changes everything. The mage reveals a harsh truth currently. Secretia only has Prince Chase. He explains Chase is a concubine's son, and the queen is completely barren, meaning there is literally no way Bern even exists in this timeline. This massive bombshell completely shatters Bern. Trapped in Calian's body, he suddenly feels this terrifying, crushing void of absolute nothingness. Spiraling, he starts questioning everything. Does he really not exist? Not in Secretia, not anywhere at all. The prince is drowning in pure panic, racking his brain over exactly how and why this nightmare is happening. Calian's actual body is totally fine, but deep down, Bern feels something incredibly wrong. He admits he sometimes worries someone else stole his original body, just like he took Calian's. He mutters, "As long as I am here, another Bern simply cannot exist." The guy looks absolutely crushed by all this. He knows deep down he basically just hijacked someone else's entire life. Trying to soften the blow, the mage explains the reality of Secretia, confirming Chase is the only heir left. He tells him, "You have to realize, the past and present are totally different now. The future already massively altered." The mage continues, pointing out the three Kyris princes are in deadly peril, completely unlike him. The Prince of Secretia, who actually grew up surrounded by amazing friends. The mage stays dead serious, leaving Bern completely stunned in Calian's body. The mage insists they can't stay chained to the past. Hearing this, Bern decides to set the record straight, promising his worst fears won't happen. He reveals that on his very first day in Kyris, the exact second his eyes opened up, he fully gave up living as Bern. Honestly, you and I are just as completely shocked as the mage is right now. Finally, Bern asks if the mage is actually okay with this entirely crazy situation. "Stick with me here, he is not the crown prince of Kyris." Smiling warmly, the mage tells Bern to stop worrying so much. He absolutely guarantees that from the very beginning only one specific person shared a real connection with both him and the prince. Riding their horses side by side, Bern starts wondering, did this wizard know about the axis of time from the start? He flat out asks if the mage has some deep, extensive knowledge about the axis of time. Riding beside Bern, the wizard just keeps this dead serious expression. He starts explaining that exactly 1 year ago, Prince Chase actually tracked him down to ask for advice regarding the axis of time. The wizard actually infiltrated Secretia himself, but he found almost zero clues except for one crazy fact: the axis of time was definitely not created by human hands. Then last month, a letter from Secretia arrives. The axis of time vanished at the exact same moment Bern claims he traveled 10 years into the past. Bern is completely mind-blown. His crazy time travel trip happened right as the magical artifact completely disappeared. Bern suggests that his time slip might actually be the reason. The wizard cuts him off right there. He agrees it is a huge issue, but honestly they still do not have a clear answer yet. Now, pay close attention here. The wizard reveals there is someone else they can ask, an expert who will actually be meeting the prince very soon. That person is Suspanian. Just like before, Prince Calian totally agrees with the smart move of the wizard. The rite of passage is fast approaching. It is a massive ceremony for new Suspanian royalty members. And during this exact event, everyone finally gets to hear the actual will of Suspanian. The wizard makes one thing super clear: the priority is staying alive for the ceremony. He tells the prince to do literally whatever it takes. Bern replies with absolute confidence. Even if he fails, the seeds of his plan are already starting to sprout. Cut back to the palace chambers. The servant of Calian is practically stressing out over the prince taking this sudden trip. The prince is busy inspecting that mysterious plant from the wizard, clearly noticing something off. Meanwhile, his anxious servant just begs him to wash up and finally sleep. Flashing a knowing smile, the prince asks his worried servant if he wants to see something really interesting. The two of them step out onto the terrace. It is early morning, freezing cold. The super rare plant they got from the Mage Society actually has some crazy hidden traits that almost nobody knows about. The prince thinks back. Earlier, he faked a clumsy accident and secretly dumped poison straight into this flower pot just to test the reactions of his servant. You and I know an ordinary person wouldn't survive 7 days with that poison, let alone a plant. But look, this thing is completely alive, meaning someone intentionally swapped the pots. Out on the terrace, Ian spots something shining brightly and quickly points it out to the prince. He is totally mesmerized by this intense glowing light. A glowing trail leads straight across the courtyard. Since they swapped it, tossing the poisoned pot was obviously not an easy job. The culprit had to hide it somewhere safe, the prince thinks, and following this trail will reveal the ultimate truth. It leads right to Hyzia Palace. Psylike is definitely waiting for him. And the very next morning, heavy rain. The prince just stands by his window, watching the storm outside. He hears the door open and turns to see who entered. It is Ian bringing morning tea. After a quick greeting, the prince casually asks if Ian actually managed to sleep well last night. Calian looks surprisingly great today. Healthy skin, cheerful vibe, totally in excellent spirits. Caught off guard, Ian confirms he slept fine, then awkwardly asks if His Highness also managed to get some good rest. Setting the tea tray down, Ian jokes that it is super weird having the prince ask about his sleep first. Plus, Calian woke up way earlier than usual today. Ian playfully teases that this must be a miracle. Maybe the sun will actually rise in the west today. The prince grabs his teacup and takes a sip. Ian asks if the loud rain woke him up. Calian notices the taste. It is subtle, but definitely there. You bumped up the poison dose, Psylike, he thinks. He casually asks Ian if there is any major event happening next week where every single noble will be present. His faithful servant confirms a massive meeting is scheduled, and even His Majesty the King will be attending. The prince also finds out that exactly 1 week after this noble meeting, a grand banquet is happening. That banquet will be the absolute perfect opportunity to test out this poison, so enjoy it while you still can, Silike the prince thinks coldly. He then pulls out the pill from the mage and swallows it like it is just a piece of candy. He hands his empty cup back to a very confused Ian. Ian asks if the prince has actually eaten any real food lately. Calian just brushes it off, saying he has only been taking basic nutrients. Closing up his pill pouch, the prince fakes feeling a bit weak and asks to head down for breakfast. Ian agrees and starts helping him. But trust me, you and I know why Ian is completely shocked. His Highness just chugged all that poison tea. Stick with me here. We are jumping right back into the royal drama. Jan is wondering why the prince looks so stressed at breakfast, especially with Franz totally missing today. Calian, he actually prefers it this way. Less chance of Franz completely wrecking his master plans. The first Prince Randall is just sipping his wine when Calian drops a super random comment about roses blooming. Randall chokes up, totally thrown off. He snaps his gaze to Calian, who just flashes this innocent little smile. Boom. Intense staring contest. Randall literally gets up and bails without even finishing his food. Jan leans in whispering like, hey, wasn't that rose talk incredibly weird for a breakfast chat? Calian plays it cool. He says he just saw some flowers in the hall and remembered Randall's weird obsession with roses. Jan is not buying that excuse at all. Meanwhile, Calian just smugly sips his coffee. Cut to the castle garden. Calian is out there grinding in the pouring rain. He is completely drenched, just a mess of sweat and stormwater. Panting and dead tired against a tree, someone suddenly walks right up. Voice jokes that he looks worse every single day, asking what he is even doing. Calian fires back that dodging leg day means he will never actually get stronger. Surprise, it is his wizard master. He just popped in casually, mentioning he was just having a chat with Rumin. Calian is totally shocked the guy just name-dropped the king. But the wizard shrugs it off. He says it is really no big deal. To him, it is just a normal name. Then he asks why Calian even summoned him here. Calian gets straight to business. He needs 2 massive favors. First, he desperately needs 2 fake identities. The wizard just grins, basically saying, oh, that is super easy to do. Second favor, Calian wants to dig into those sketchy noble deaths, specifically tying back to Rumin. And they both say that last part together, sharing this totally wicked smile. The wizard laughs. That is a walk in the park, and he appreciates Calian actually bothering to ask nicely. Then asks if our prince is in a massive rush. The wizard drops a bomb. The poison dosage, it just went up. And he is pretty sure he already knows who is doing it. Now, pay attention here. The wizard hints at the suspect and Calian warns that the enemy is going to start squeezing them hard very soon. Calian admits it is tough to mess with a great wizard, but he tells his master that he still needs a hidden ace up his sleeve. Manasal raises an eyebrow asking if Calian plans to use him as bait, but Bern stares him down. Not bait, he says. A literal weapon. Exactly, a weapon. Because Bern knows wizard power better than anyone alive, guys who killed him in his past life, that terrifying wizard army, the White Demons. So his wild solution, build his very own wizard society, completely loyal to him. Manasal is completely stunned by this crazy kid's massive ambition. He breaks it down. Wizards are not like knights. You are born magic, not trained. Bern smirks. He finally reveals a secret from his past life, a strategy that actually worked before. Now the wizard is totally hooked. Back when King Rumin first pitched a magic society in Kalis, every single noble in the room basically laughed right in his face. They brushed it off as a joke. But because they ignored it, the king secretly launched the whole thing right under their noses. Absolute genius. But right after the society locked in, Rumin randomly died under super sketchy circumstances. With the king gone, the wizards blindly swore loyalty to Franz. Know what you are thinking. Franz gets the power. Nope. The prince swears he absolutely will not let history repeat itself this time around. Bern knows he has to play this smart. House Brisson is waiting to ruin everything. His ultimate trump card, that nasty poison tea Silica has been forcing him to drink. The wizard is super confused by this weird flex and begs for details. But Calian just hits him with a sneaky smile, promising the truth is going to drop very soon. Manasal looks totally disappointed by the cliffhanger. But Calian just tells him to go chat with the king. Calian bets the king is stressing out over a million things right now. He tells his master to just relax. Silica is basically doomed to mess up. Then she will have to negotiate. They have to strike while the iron is hot. Meanwhile, cut to the enemy base. A maid reports they are definitely upping the poison for the queen. The queen slams her hand down on the table. 0 mistakes allowed from here on out. Nasty rumors are already hitting the streets, and it is driving her insane. She is completely sick of dealing with it. The maid is practically shaking with pure fear, promising she will not fail. But right in the middle of their scary chat, some guy walks up. The queen rants that she is forced to do this because her useless son is dodging his royal duties. Guess who? It is Franz himself, and he looks absolutely furious. He snaps at his mom for meddling in his life, coming all the way here just to yell at her. Queen tells him his opinion is trash since he does nothing. So what do you and I make of this? This toxic family is totally doomed. Alright, stick with me, because we are diving into wild royal drama. The queen dramatically sighed, claiming these were just the pains of motherhood, and she would do anything. Hearing this nonsense, Franz clenched his fist in pure rage. He immediately spun around and stormed right out of the room. Calmly sipping her tea, the vicious queen thought her son was way too soft, but hey, at least her path to ultimate power was totally clear. Moving day finally hit. The weather was absolutely gorgeous, and somebody was literally humming a cheerful tune. Clearly, someone was in an amazing mood. Kyrie noticed immediately. You have been singing literally all day long. Are you really that hyped? Hina smiled, saying they were finally heading to the royal palace, which meant seeing the prince again. Smirking, Kyrie playfully asked if she had a crush on him. Blushing, Hina called the prince absolutely incredible, adding she seriously could not wait for the big night. Meanwhile, over at the Grand Palace, a panicked tailor and his crew prepped the royal outfit. Jan was furiously finishing the final details, warning that the prince needed to hit the banquet in exactly 1 hour. But Calian stayed totally calm, asking his servant for a massive favor first. The young prince decided it was finally time to end this ridiculous game. The old weak prince drank poison by force, but this new Calian, he would decline with savage politeness. Striding into the banquet hall, the royal vassal loudly announced his grand arrival. Calian and the wicked queen locked eyes in dead silence. The epic moment to trigger a complete royal overhaul had begun. Cut to Jan practically flying on horseback. His mind kept flashing back to the prince's insane, urgent request. Calian had ordered him to drop off 2 secret letters. One for the Arcane Enclave, the other for Master Alan. The Enclave delivery absolutely had to happen first. The prince confidently promised he could handle himself against the queen, swearing everything would go totally fine. Jan was secretly panicking, mostly because this was definitely not the first time Calian pulled a reckless stunt like this. Now pay close attention here. While Jan convinced himself he was stressing over nothing, the scene slams back to the banquet and a wine glass shatters onto the floor. Absolute chaos erupts. The king jumps totally startled as someone suddenly collapses face first right in front of the queen. Back at the Magic Enclave, a gorgeous purple-haired lady handed Master Manasil every single secret record he had demanded. Just checking these massive official documents should be more than enough, she stated. That is Yura Siren, literal boss of the Kyris Arcane Enclave. Manasil sighed, shocked such huge information was hidden, but admitted the corrupt nobles probably had zero choice in the matter. Yura nodded, adding that no weak family would ever dare cross House Roma. Everyone was just trying to avoid extremely unfortunate fatal accidents. Yura genuinely wondered what wild plan Prince Calian had for this dark intel. Manasil actually froze, rubbing his chin in deep thought before even trying to answer. Bam! The heavy door flew open as a voice desperately screamed for Madame Yura. It was Jan, completely out of breath and dripping in sweat. Spotting both targets right there, he sighed in pure relief, instantly shoving Calian's letter into Manasil's hands. As the master quickly scanned it, Jan practically tossed the second envelope to Yura. Manasil shot straight up, snatched his coat and barked out, asking where the royal banquet was happening. You and I both know the rules, and Jan did too, reminding him about a royal invite. But Yura screamed that formalities meant nothing because Calian's very life was on the line. Poor Jan was absolutely paralyzed by Yura's reveal. The crazy letter exposed Calian's suicidal plan, risking his own neck to force Queen Silica into negotiations. If it all blew up, Manasil was his one and only backup. Rewind exactly 1 hour earlier. Calian sat having a tense tea directly with the wicked queen. He flat out suggested they both drop the fake smiles. Snapping her fan shut, the queen instantly agreed, tapping it coldly while bragging that honesty would not change his pathetic fate anyway. Still calmly drinking his tea, Calian fired back that he only meant dropping their literal masks, not throwing away her basic human manners. Locking eyes with her, he basically mocked her. A simple war of words. Is that really your absolute best? Queen sneered, expecting a real surprise. Standing up quickly, she dramatically declared that this entire pathetic meeting was just a massive waste of her royal time. She insulted his roots, sneering that a lowly commoner like Calian would never understand basic royal courtesy. Calian just sat there and casually dropped the poison reveal. Setting down his delicate cup, Calian mocked the awful taste, saying he was totally done drinking it. The queen immediately played dumb, faking absolute confusion about his wild accusation. Flashing a completely fake smile, she brushed it off, claiming his little joke totally missed its mark. Calian told her to chill because he brought plenty of backup plans. He promised he knew several hardcore ways to sharpen her fading, arrogant mind. Pulling out a strange glass vial, he casually wondered out loud what he should wager to guarantee her cooperation. My heart is literally the only valuable thing I have left, so I am betting it all today, the prince grinned, holding up the mysterious vial. He casually revealed the terrifying liquid inside would temporarily stop a human heart from beating. Hearing this, the queen slowly leaned forward over the grand table. Not even magic or silver could detect it, but Suspanian's blessing kept him totally safe. And trust me, we are absolutely going to want to see what happens next. Let's jump right in together. That blessing only blocked one attack. Drinking it right there meant the venom would spread fast and completely end his life. If I die poisoned while we are alone, who takes the blame? Prince Calian asked. The evil queen just sneered at his pathetic question. She laughed right in his face. Did he really think a cheap threat would work? He definitely was not the first annoying enemy she had dealt with like this. Everyone already knew she had murdered his mother, yet the entire kingdom stayed totally silent. Why on earth would things be any different this time? That struck a nerve. Furious Calian stared her down and asked what he should do with the cup. With a creepy smile, she told him to go ahead and do whatever he needed. The crazy prince actually agreed, raising the poisoned tea to his lips. He downed it in one single gulp. She just watched him like a hawk. Smiling wickedly, she called him a total fool. Who would ever dare blame her for this? Not even King Rarman himself could ever force me to bow down, she bragged with a smirk. She truly believed nothing in Kyris was out of her reach, especially that throne. Over the years, she had ruthlessly crushed every single obstacle, taking whatever she desired. But there was still one tiny piece missing. Now watch closely, because this is where it gets wild. Right as the banquet officially started, someone in the crowd suddenly began to cough really hard. The queen hid a massive smirk. She figured Calian was finally out of the picture. Boom, Prince Calian crashed to the floor, violently coughing up bright red strawberry juice. The whole banquet erupted into pure panic. Nobles rushed over, screaming for a priest to save him. Meanwhile, the queen hid her evil little giggles right behind her fan. Calian was twitching right at the queen's perfectly manicured feet. Absolute chaos broke out as confusion spread fast. Was his drink spiked? Did someone get him before the party? Who was the last person he saw? Right then, a terrifying guard roared for total silence, threatening to execute anyone who kept talking. The queen felt totally invincible, since nobody dared to point fingers. Then the king sprinted over. He grabbed the prince, begging him to stay alive. Barely conscious, Calian choked out the word father, which completely stunned the king. Flashback time. The king remembered Calian's dying mother, begging him to protect their boy. Now Calian tried to speak, but just weakly pointed his finger instead. Looking at where he pointed, the king instantly understood. Putting on a fake show, the queen gasped at this tragedy and announced she was leaving this mess to wait in Hatia Palace. Still holding his bleeding kid, the furious king practically growled. How dare she do this to his own flesh and blood? He screamed Queen Silica's name at the top of his lungs. The nobles froze completely, mind-blown by this insane public call-out. Her smug little smile vanished, replaced by pure shock as she turned around. The entire room started whispering like crazy. You and I both know they were totally alone earlier. Did she actually poison him? Honestly, half the room wasn't even surprised by the idea. Hearing this, Silica gripped her fancy fan tightly. Hiding her face again, she coldly told the angry king he was speaking nonsense. Didn't the weak little prince already suffer from some kind of nasty chronic illness anyway? The furious king snapped back that she was right there when Freya died. All the royal knights backed up his massive claim. He clearly remembered her lying, saying Freya just tragically died from an illness. Even if it was an illness, you are still to blame, he roared. But the queen smugly asked who could possibly prove Calian was ever healthy. Nobody would believe him. Flashing a completely toxic little smile, she kept pushing him. Why not ask the other princes who eat breakfast with him every single day? They surely know about his terrible health. The king angrily told her to drop the mocking act. She pretended to just be a worried mom, sighing that their son was fading fast. Romain completely lost it. He actually drew his massive sword, screaming about how she dared to call him their son. Noble whispered that she had zero right to say that. Hearing the insult, Silica's smug face finally cracked. Prince Plant stepped up, swearing Calian was completely fine. He never noticed a single thing wrong with his brother. At least he seemed perfectly healthy the last time they hung out. Now the evil queen was absolutely furious with Plants for snitching. Suddenly, doors flew open as the royal priest arrived. Silica used the distraction to bail towards her palace, while the king begged for healing magic. But the second the priest tried to cast his healing spell, a glowing protective barrier slammed down right around the prince. A mysterious figure popped up behind the priest, completely blocking his divine magic. Trust me, you are not ready for this ending. The mage Manisil burst in sweating, yelling that she wants him dead, so just killing him is better. The panicked king screamed at the mage. What was he doing? Calian needed urgent medical treatment right now. The mage frantically explained the prince had a circle inside his heart. Alright, watch closely. If his circle touches sacred power, boom, no luck involved. His heart instantly explodes, ending him entirely. Calian coughed up blood, writhing in pure agony. Panicking, the king demanded another way. If sacred power fails, can magic actually save his life? The mage hesitated, admitting that a nature healer might just bring a tiny sliver of hope. Using normal magic, totally impossible. Desperate, the king ordered him to fix it fast, unable to watch the prince suffer. Suddenly, a chilling memory flashed through the mage's mind. A traumatic scene that deeply terrified him. A guy on his knees spitting blood like Calian. The dying man in absolute agony begged to know why. Snapping back to reality, Manasil sat on the floor, gently resting the dying prince's head right on his lap. Through blurry eyes, Calian saw his master, and weakly asked why he looked so incredibly devastated. Manasil swallowed hard. He never imagined he would actually use that terrifying forbidden spell again in his life. He remembered using this exact magic on that stubborn guy, before promising it would erase the pain. Boom. A few tense days pass. Outside life went on normally. But while a couple walked down the street, a weird paper leaf slapped the guy's face. Looking up, he completely froze. Thousands of paper leaves were falling. Every single one demanded the brutal truth, totally exposing the corrupt Brizan family for ruthlessly killing 37 innocent people. Now watch this, because the tension is truly peaking. The whole Brizan family gets completely exposed, leaked secrets about the queen poisoning Calian, and their cruel acts sparked absolute public madness. Nobody dared to even look at the Brizans anymore. One wrong step could easily destroy your entire life. Even the king himself officially declared Queen Silic entirely guilty of the poisoning. A murderous queen, furious citizens went wild, vandalizing city walls and screaming for Silic to be completely eliminated. Nassel remembered Calian's genius plan. To build their new mage troupe, they basically had to strike while Silic's reputation was fully destroyed. Reading a special letter from the prince, the king sat there looking incredibly deep in thought. The king was totally shocked. Calian basically read his mind, suggesting the exact same plan for a mage troupe. Meanwhile, Queen Silic stood glaring beside Calian's sickbed, sarcastically noting the Mage Association seemed awfully busy lately. Hiding her fury behind a fan, she coldly asked when they prepared this sneaky little stunt. Calian played totally dumb, swearing he had zero clue what she meant. He sarcastically thanked her for giving him so much time to rest. That pissed her off. For a kid who barely survived dying, he was looking way too incredibly energetic. He kept pushing casually, joking about how he almost literally died. Fake sweating and gasping, Calian acted exhausted. Claiming his poor health made chatting too hard, he basically told her to get out so he could finally sleep. Completely backed into a corner, the anxious queen nervously asked to negotiate terms. Calian fired back she was a week late. Things had changed. Still, he confidently offered to at least hear her desperate little pitch out. She offered a trade. If he publicly called the poison rumors fake, she wouldn't block his new mage plans. You saw that coming, right? He just laughed loudly, telling her she totally misunderstood the situation. The queen violently gripped her fan. Calian coldly clarified he didn't need her permission, politely asking if she was finally done wasting his precious time. Furious, she stood up. Pointing a finger at him, she aggressively demanded to know exactly what he wanted. Smiling like a boss, Calian mocked her. In a land ruled by Cispanian's descendants, why are your knights making noise? He dropped the hammer. He wanted her Pabril Knight troops permanently disbanded. Utterly astonished, the queen gasped, asking if he seriously meant to disband all of them. Pabril was her personal army from the Marquis. Losing those elite knights meant losing literally half of her political power. Calian didn't flinch. Disband Pabril, fund his mages, and zero room for debate. Those were his absolute final terms. Enraged, she watched Calian calmly summon his Loimas Derf, who handed a specific stack of papers directly to the queen. Jan revealed a testimony locked with an oath seal. The queen's eyes went absolutely wide with shock at the magical mark. Calian smirked. This magic binds the contract to their hearts. If she ever broke the oath, her heart would instantly shatter, killing her on the spot. That genius trap was exactly why Queen Silic visited him right after he woke up. Meanwhile, the first prince was quietly tending to the roses out in his garden. Staring at a fallen rose, he zoned out. His mind flashed right back to the horrifying moment Calian collapsed. Trust me, that final eye contact changes everything entirely. He remembered chatting with his brother at the cafe right when Calian said the roses were about to finally bloom. Stick with me here. You and I are about to see him actually get involved to help these roses bloom, just like Calian wanted. The exact second Prince Calian hit the ground, Randall almost spoke. But Plants beat him to it, pointing out Calian was totally fine earlier. Randall stood completely shocked that Plants actually helped the prince out. Randall knew things were shifting fast. Back in the room, Calian explained the magic oath to the queen. This crazy magic literally burns the contract terms straight into their actual hearts. Break the rules, your heart gets completely crushed. Instant game over for anyone. The prince joked about their terrible trust issues, then asked the queen for her next move. She just sat there, frozen in total absolute shock. Snatching the quill from the servant, the queen angrily signed the paper. Instantly, glowing magic started pouring out everywhere. That glowing energy wrapped tightly around her signing arm. The deal was officially sealed, chaining their hearts together. Furious, she totally smashed the quill on the floor. As she stormed off, Calian warned her not to get things twisted up. He made it super clear he never got along with his brothers, and that crazy day he got poisoned, plants did not lift a single finger to save him. Now pay attention. One more word here, and the king's massive sword would have literally chopped her head right off. Still, could only picture plants right now. She looked totally stunned by Calian. Snapping back to her icy self, she bolted from the room while Calian just watched. A bit later, the mage dropped, by completely losing his mind over psychotic showing up. Someone was just busy inhaling bananas. The mage finally relaxed, seeing Calian was just starving. Mid-chew, Calian happily mumbled about how amazing the fruit tasted. The mage joked that cheating death makes any food taste like a masterpiece. Smiling back, the prince said his job was done. Nassel was absolutely furious he could still smile. Seriously, he almost had to visit the kid's fresh grave today. He straight up told him that if those elf siblings hadn't magically shown up right then, and if Hina wasn't a crazy good nature healer, Calian would be 100% dead right now. Hearing the mage vent, the prince looked completely shocked. He had zero clue Hina possessed healing skills. Manhwa immediately asked if he somehow missed that detail in his past life. Prince explained he only knew Kyris back then. By the time they actually met, Hina was already long gone. Boom. The mage got his answers without needing to interrogate him anymore. Still, he was raging that Calian swallowed literal poison with zero survival plan, just blindly trusting a random crazy blessing. While Calian awkwardly apologized, the mage tossed him some papers. It was the ID cards he asked for, which our prince completely forgot about by now. But watch this. We definitely didn't see this surprise coming. Both of the elf siblings literally had Bern as their surname. The mage calmly explained they needed a last name, so he used his old one, figuring Calian brought them here for a big reason. Scanning every single tiny detail, Calian smiled big and thanked him. He realized these weren't just cheap fake documents, they were 100% real IDs. The mage basically confirmed these kids belonged to the Bern territory forever. Then the mage dropped a bomb. Remain actually handled this, totally stunning the prince. Manhwa smirked, asking how Calian felt about new rumors, calling him the king's absolute favorite son. Calian seriously doubted those rumors existed. But the mage said after the king's wild stunt in front of everyone, people were definitely talking. The prince felt incredibly weirded out, thinking those mushy feelings belonged to someone else entirely. He just sat there on the sofa getting totally lost in his thoughts. Calian called Jan over to trash the banana peels. But his loyal servant just silently walked up and stared him down. Jan finally said he needed to talk. When asked what was up, Jan literally demanded to quit being his personal assistant right now. You and I both know that wild resignation hit the prince like a total absolute truck. A tiny foot stepped onto the plush carpet. The kid sprinted through an insanely huge, fancy palace hall. Heading to the back left of the second floor, he peeked over a wooden counter and yelled that he arrived. A dangerously sick man laid in bed, his hands completely wrapped in thick bandages. Flashing a massive smile, the boy happily greeted his older brother, who quietly whispered a gentle hello back. "Stick with me here. Hear the crickets calling?" the boy asked. His brother muttered, "Yes. Summer means those nasty black bugs start screaming like crazy," the man replied, completely dead inside. Staying positive, the younger boy thought they just had weird wings, or maybe they made those incredibly loud sounds right from their own stomachs. He even eagerly suggested catching one of those bugs the very next morning and bringing it inside. But the brother, completely bandaged from head to toe, told him not to. He absolutely hated crickets, and just asked the kid to play his violin instead. "I heard your son is a great doctor," the sick brother whispered. But apparently that guy said he was way too busy with something else. Disturbing whispers reached the boy's ears. "How can I ask for that one?" voice argued. "Sir, this hurts me too, but there has to be another way," a man pleaded. Back then, the boy had absolutely no idea just how horrifying those exact words of total helplessness and despair would actually turn out to be. "Siroyen," the dying brother called out. "Do not look away. Look me straight in the eyes. Understand that I am dying." His brother stared intensely. Suddenly, loud screams erupted outside. "We have to run, grab Ian, and get him out of here." The fire spread fast. And right before his 15th birthday, that was how his brother tragically decided to end all of his pain, and everyone else's too. After that horrific day, summer faded into autumn, and then freezing winter arrived. Once the garden crickets started chirping again, he shut down completely. Unable to bear his intense suffering, his father finally pulled him out of that dark room. Traumatized, he would constantly hide right in his father's arms, resting his tiny head on his shoulder. Now watch closely, here's where it pivots. A voice suddenly asked, "Who's this kid? Enter the kingdom's third prince." Grieving man replied, bowing his head. The young prince with red eyes looked entirely broken inside. Immediately, Ian felt just how deeply heavy the prince's heart truly was. Fast forward to now. Looking down timidly, Ian muttered, "I want to resign as your personal servant." Calian stared at him in pure shock. "Wait, no, what are you talking about?" he asked. Sobbing loudly, Ian finally broke down and started telling his tragic story. As the absolute closest person to the prince, Ian guiltily confessed he never understood what was truly happening. He dropped a massive bomb. He was actually the one blindly serving the poisoned tea every morning. Calian just quietly watched his frantic servant. "This is all my fault," Ian confessed, devastated. "I completely missed the signs and wasn't by your side when you were in actual danger. I knew nothing and you almost died because of me." Suddenly, Ian's trauma triggered violently, hallucinating his dead brother's burnt face. "Do not avoid the fact that I am dying," the ghostly figure whispered from beyond, extending its creepy hands right toward a terrified Ian. "Ian, look at me right now," Prince Calian shouted. Snapping out of his dark trance, Ian opened his tear-filled eyes, totally dazed and shaking. The prince fiercely demanded to know exactly who was standing in front of him. His intense glare made it crystal clear he was expecting an immediate answer. Still crying, Ian choked out Prince Calian. Calian firmly pressed a hand to Ian's chest. "I will not die. Since I first woke up in this place, you've stayed faithfully by my side. And honestly, it is only thanks to you that I've managed to survive up until this exact moment. I survived entirely because you took care of me. I might not know everything about your past either, but I know one thing for certain. You are going to keep protecting me from now on, aren't you?" Calian's gentle words completely broke the dam. Deeply moved, Ian instantly dropped straight down to his knees, bawling his absolute eyes out. "Let's pause here. This loyalty is unmatched. Get up right now," the prince ordered. Knowing he could never turn back, Ian grabbed the hand, reaching down to pull him up. Ian made a fierce, silent vow. "I must protect this person for the rest of my life." Going full protection mode, Ian immediately swore to eliminate anyone making the prince suffer. Calian blinked in confusion. "Wait, what? Are you actually trying to avenge me right now?" "Yes, because they dared to hurt you," Ian replied fiercely. Calian laughed and told him to chill out, warning that if the elephants moved, an all-out war would literally begin. Ian stubbornly told him to forget about the war, even if he wasn't currently using the famous Siegfried family's identity. Calian basically just called him an elephant. Completely shocked, Ian gasped, "Wait, you knew?" Calian just smiled and shrugged. Ian demanded to know since when, but the prince answered super vaguely. Ian muttered the prince really shouldn't know that, confessing he heavily resented his own father. Calian completely ignored the drama, saying once he cleared out the annoying garbage he just wanted a coffee. Then Calian challenged Ian to a bet on who would grow taller. Meanwhile, in a sudden dreamscape, Bern finally saw the original Calian. They faced off. Calian flashed a super calm smile, while Bern stood there completely mind-blown. Still smiling, Calian walked right up to Bern, got uncomfortably close, and then just breezed straight past him. Stunned, Bern watched him head toward two other people. They looked exactly like childhood besties. Calian then glanced back at Bern, who was honestly freaking out over this entire bizarre situation. Desperately, Bern reached his hand out toward him. Calian's smug smile instantly vanished into pure surprise, but then his confident smirk returned. Calian whispered something that totally shocked Bern awake. Still smiling, Calian just watched Bern as if he were falling straight through space. Bern plummeted down, waking up, trapped in Calian's body. "Are you guys ready for what's next? Alright, stick with me here." He jolts awake, totally clueless about that wild dream. During the funeral for the original, Calian Manassil actually asked if he had truly moved on. Calian figured the original guy wanted to stick around and enjoy everything he secretly craved, but the dude was in such a huge rush that he just straight up vanished. So our prince makes a vow. He is dedicating this second life to the original Calian, promising to fulfill every single one of his wishes. He joked that if this royal life was just a prison for the old Calian, he was honestly a little jealous of his brand new freedom. Looking right at Manassil, the prince firmly declared he wouldn't play dumb anymore. The old Calian left behind plenty of unfinished business and uncalled favors. Now it is time for him to live this second life like an absolute boss. Meanwhile, Pavel's entire night squad gets totally scrapped, sent packing right back to Marquis Brizen. Alan warned everyone to ignore those crazy royal rumors. Right on cue, King Romain dropped a massive announcement. He is building a brand new mage corps. Flash forward 3 months. Jan and a maid realize they desperately need to call a tailor. Jan tells her to get the tailor fast because our boy is growing like a weed, and his clothes do not fit. Speaking of Prince, Calian casually strolls right into the room where Alan and King Rumen are waiting. Romain takes one look and realizes Calian hit a massive growth spurt. He even jokes that the prince looks way taller than plants now. The king then asks if Calian is finally totally ready for the Rosalita. With his birthday right around the corner, our prince confirms everything is perfectly set. But Manassil steps in explaining the real reason they called him here. There is someone very important he absolutely needs to meet. This guy is the mage, acting as his personal bodyguard during Rosalita. The dude walks right in, introduces himself, and claims it is an absolute honor to meet him. It is Arson Hertz. Pay attention now, Calian stares at him in pure horror. Romain hypes Hertz up as a total prodigy joining the mage corps. He is completely clueless, hoping Calian and Hertz will become best buddies and learn from each other. Holding back pure rage, Calian sarcastically replies that this is one incredibly special, totally unexpected birthday gift. Changing the subject, Calian asks when the mage squad forms. Alan admits it is going to take a while. They lack a name, a head count, and even uniforms. Literally nothing is confirmed, so they still have a super long way to go. It is literally just the beginning, Alan adds, while Hertz flashes a creepy smile at the prince. Then Alan casually asks if the king wants to name the squad. King Rumen looks totally prepared, acting like he has been secretly brainstorming this exact moment for weeks. Smiling proudly, the king pitches the name Vulcan. Honestly, even Prince Calian seems pretty cool with that choice. Alan laughs, saying the king was definitely just waiting to be asked, and it would have been a problem if nobody did. Calian then asks for Hertz's honest opinion. Sipping his tea like an absolute boss, the prince waits. Hertz just smiles, playing completely dumb. Calian pushes harder, asking if he likes the name Vulcan, or if it sounds strangely familiar. Alan instantly catches the weird tension and glares right at them. Still keeping that fake smile plastered on, Hertz just nods and calls it a good name. Alan throws up a barrier. You saw that tension too, right? Shocked by their dark past, he panics and offers to completely cancel the recommendation. Calian shuts that down immediately. Even after confirming that this exact guy actually murdered the original Calian, our prince points out that this timeline's Hertz is still technically a very different person right now. Plus, the whole situation had completely changed. Still, letting it slide without questioning him further felt wrong. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Hertz is shaking like a leaf. Later on, Calian meets up with Pollen. He casually greets the guy, saying it has been a long time and telling him to simply relax. Our prince actually apologizes for hiding his real identity and for dropping in totally unannounced. Pollen is sweating, saying he is crazy honored to be chosen. He knows perfectly well that Calian has literally never teamed up with any nobles until now. Sneaking in for a secret visit was a genius move to stop any crazy rumors from spreading. Calian isn't here to play games. He skips the small talk and gets straight to the point. Time to collect the reward for saving Pollen's life. He directly asks what the Emporium is ready to put on the table. Pollen brags a bit, saying business is booming, he is trading diamonds now, and even exchanging premium horses with the royal family. But obviously that is not exactly the answer Calian was looking for. Pollen sweats, admitting he doesn't have anything that specific to offer yet. Calian merely smiles, staring right at the Baron. Next, the prince asks if Pollen can run something way bigger than just the Emporium. The Baron confidently claims that with enough money and staff, anything is possible. Calian flexes, saying he has both, but warns that the Brizen family does too. Pollen nervously mutters he thought only the prince had those massive resources. Total silence. Then Calian laughs, agreeing Pollen is right about Brizen's wealth. So what do you and I take from this? The real war starts now. Stick with me here. Pollen realizes that with Calian's massive wealth, taking down Brizen is going to be ridiculously easy. Calian reveals his master plan to build an entire mage army. They have the funds and manpower, but managing them all, that is the real headache. Pollen nervously asks if this is the actual payoff for his survival. Calian just flashes a cocky smile, telling him he already got it. He straight up confirms this is the price for staying alive. Pollen sweats a little but promises to get it done fast. Meanwhile, our prince mentally high-fives himself because his crazy plan actually worked out perfectly. He was supposed to die right after turning 15, but he totally rewrote his own fate. Now he has a squad of loyal allies backing him. The final puzzle piece is finding Suspanian's will and Rosalita. Honestly, Calian is fully aware of everything going down. Stepping into his massive birthday bash, Calian takes in the epic celebration, totally impressed by how flawlessly it is set up. Over by a pillar, Franz is chilling against the wall. The young prince walks right up to confront him. Smiling like he has not a care in the world, he approaches Franz and smoothly drops a classic long-time no-see greeting. Franz flat out ignores him, so the prince starts walking away. But then Franz loudly calls him bloody eyes. Calian stops and glances back, seeing the second prince acting completely unbothered as usual. The third prince snaps back, firmly declaring he will not tolerate being treated like dirt anymore, and reminds him his name is Calian. Smirking right back, Franz mocks the name. He blatantly states this guy is definitely not the Calian he remembers, which genuinely catches our prince off guard. Franz points out that the Calian standing right in front of him rides horses, swings swords, and actually talks back to people. Watch closely. Franz steps up, demanding to know who he truly is, leaving Calian absolutely stunned by the question. He realizes he cannot forget the brutal truth. He is no longer the King of Secretia, having lost his entire homeland to Franz. The Mad King was not the real problem, it was Franz who destroyed Secretia. So he decides to play it smart, and wait until he grabs Suspanian's will. Forcing a bright smile, he casually tells Franz he is speaking total nonsense. He just keeps grinning while the second prince glares daggers at him in pure rage. A little later, the mage quietly chats with Prince Calian. He points out it makes total sense that Franz noticed the shift. Sure, the guy is an absolute scoundrel, but he is definitely no idiot. The young prince shoots the mage, a totally confused look, tilting his head, and asking, "Wait, Franz is a scoundrel." The mage casually confirms it, saying it is not exactly a secret. The prince just smirks a little and admits that is exactly how he views him too. Calian adds, "He played dumb, but Franz obviously did not buy his act for a second." Mage then asks what his plan is to convince him, especially since the prince had boldly claimed to be no one but Calian himself. Calian agrees. The mage makes a fair point. He admits he really said that while the old man just studies him thoughtfully. Internally, the mage realizes something. Even though Calian swore he would not live like Bern anymore, shaking off his past life is not going to be that easy. You and I know how these bonds work. Getting his attention, the mage hands over a ring, promising to always listen if Calian ever needs an old man's advice. Intrigued, Calian asks if the ring holds any communication magic. The mage nods, explaining he actually infused a fraction of his own magical power right into the band. He warns it will not work inside places filled with Suspanian power like the castle, but promises it will answer whenever possible. The grateful prince warmly thanks his master. He admits it feels nice being connected to him. Manasil then asks why he is so worried, since everyone around them seems like genuinely good people. Flashing a knowing smile, his apprentice fires back, asking if the mage actually believes that fairy tale. Sometime later, a fierce man introduces himself as Commander Euron, boss of the Siegfried Knights. He confidently steps up, swearing his elite knights will fiercely guard the prince all the way to the legendary Suspanian nest in their territory. The prince thinks to himself with heavy irony that this is classic Siegfried behavior. Honestly, he never expected their protective detail to be this insanely overwhelming. Funny enough, his servant Jan is actually the young master of the Siegfried family. Jan respectfully asks if His Highness needs anything before they hit the road. The prince just claps a hand on Jan's shoulder and smoothly demands something to drink. Jan offers water, which instantly makes the nearby knights practically boil with rage. Picking up the vibe, Jan quickly pivots to offering tea instead, and the prince happily agrees. Jan scurries off to fetch it, earning a thanks from His Highness. The prince slowly turns his gaze back to the heavily armed knights. He just stands there smiling as they visibly fume, absolutely furious that this royal is ordering around their precious young master. Meanwhile, Manasil, Kyrie, and Hina are completely dumbfounded by the prince's fearless attitude. The old mage just sighs, wondering why on earth the prince is casually speedrunning, making new enemies. Trust me, you and I want to see this. The kingdom's massive birthday celebration is his ultimate chance to witness Suspanian's legendary will. Everyone simply watches in awe as the Prince of Kyris finally comes of age. Alright, let's jump right into this. Plants is watching, looking absolutely miserable. The queen totally absent, probably chilling in her room with some tea. The prince parades through the massive crowd on horseback, flashing a quick smile right at Manasil. Passing through the giant gates, the Rosalia officially kicks off. But given his past accident, you cannot help but feel slightly anxious for him. The king asks if it would be smarter to just go with him. Setting down his cup, the mage calmly sips and says, "Relaxing is fine." Honestly, he is way more worried about the prince inside the castle than out. The king grumbles that the mage never changes, definitely not a compliment, before double-checking if he is really not worried. Sighing heavily, the mage thinks to himself, for a king who stresses about absolutely everything, things have been shockingly calm up until now. Finally answering aloud, the mage points out that nothing he said was actually incorrect anyway. The king snaps back that this exact attitude is exactly what he means. Deep in the forest, the prince starts wondering how his mysterious ring works. He asks a few questions, but the ring stays silent. Meanwhile, Ian mentions the Tencel delegates have arrived, turning the palace into pure chaos. Ian casually suggests they chat just to kill the boredom. The prince jokes that Ian caused all this recent mess, acting totally shocked when his servant claims he was trying super hard to reach him. Ian then spins around, telling the heavily armed knights to listen up. He loudly announces the mage declared Prince Calian has zero magical talent, plus his sword skills are basically non-existent for self-defense. Quote, "He is as fragile and precious as a little flower, so you better protect him." The knights look visibly super disappointed. Flexing his status as the eldest, Siegfried's son Ian informs the group they still have 2 or 3 hours before hitting Latran. Now, pay attention, here is where it gets crazy. Ian suggests a break, but a sudden forest noise cuts him off. Instant panic, knights draw swords on high alert while Kyrie and the mage immediately jump into formation to protect the prince. Looking closely at the noise source, Calian thinks everyone is totally overreacting right now. Boom. A tiny figure bursts from the bushes, running for its life and crying out. It is just a terrified little elf. Calian gently asks for a name, but the elf just cries about being hungry. Everyone is stunned seeing the prince act so sweet. He asks the creature if it is wandering the woods just looking for a quick snack. Shaking with fear, the little elf admits it was actually hiding from something. Calian instantly realizes something is super off here. A knight asks for orders, and Calian says to grab some food. But right then, another distinct sound echoes from deep within the dense trees nearby. He glares into the woods, scolding the elf for not warning them someone was hot on its trail. Right on cue, a mysterious guy on horseback casually trots out of the trees. Prince Calian smoothly whips off his cloak, wraps the tiny elf, and orders Kyrie to hide him fast. A knight steps up demanding answers. The guy claims he is hunting a thief and asks if they spotted a weird-looking kid anywhere. Classic knight move, he completely denies seeing any kid and angrily orders the guy away. The guy notices Kyrie hiding something. He quickly raises his hands, claiming he does not want to fight knights. He begs for permission to search for his target. Suddenly, a bunch of eerie lights start flickering in the dark woods. The knight goes to yell at him, but Calian steps in, casually asking exactly who this guy is tracking down. He says a young elf. And I know what you're thinking, why would Calian agree? But he actually lets him search. Hearing the prince say yes, the little elf completely panics in absolute terror. The guy confidently walks toward Kyrie. But right as he passes Calian, the prince whispers coldly, "Do not turn around, just listen to me." Calian reveals the grim truth. Those lights, they are not backup. The real targets are him and the child. The second you identify this kid, a literal rain of arrows is coming from that exact direction. Before Calian can even finish, the idiot turns around and instantly the glowing forest lights flare up super bright. A massive volley of arrows shoots right at him, but shockingly, they all snap before making impact. Prince Calian flashes in, using his sword to shatter the arrows and tackling the guy out of the sniper's line of sight like an absolute boss. Annoyed, Calian glares down and coldly reminds the guy he explicitly told him not to look. More arrows fly, knights scream ambush, and trust me, you are going to want to see what Hertz casts next. Stick with me here, let's jump right in. A magic shield blocks the arrows and the mage. Hertz spots the enemies falling back. The knight leader orders his squad to pursue but stay close. Prince Cal thinks the threat is totally over since the arrows stopped. But an assassin notices the prince completely dropping his guard. Meanwhile, Hertz grabs the elf from Kyrie so he can rush back to defend the prince. The hidden assassin approaches the prince pretending to check on him. Hertz screams a warning and the guy violently launches his attack. Kyrie yells for the prince to watch his back. The assassin strikes, but wait, the guy is absolutely stunned. The young prince just effortlessly parried the massive blow with a tiny dagger. Without missing a beat, the prince blasts a spell straight into the attacker's chest. The guy collapses to the dirt, screaming in pure agony. The rest of the knights are absolutely speechless. Wait, since when could the prince use magic? Then Ian frantically sprints over. He asks if his master is okay, sighing in relief that things always miraculously work out for them. He scolds the prince for pushing forward when the knights are literally there to protect him. In Ian's head, the prince barely knows basic sword defense and completely sucks at magic. The knights, they are just replaying that crazy fight in their heads. You and I both know Ian's words do not match the insane skills we just witnessed. We stare at the prince in shock. What kind of fragile flower, like Ian calls him, casually obliterates an assassin like that? A few minutes pass and the little elf still looks terrified. The prince walks over, pulls back her hood, and demands a chat. He shoots her a dead serious glare. But before he even asks about the stolen item, the elf blurts out, "Luca did it. I swear I don't know anything." She literally keeps answering questions before he can even ask them. She frantically explains she has no clue who stole it, and those jerks falsely accused her. The prince just aggressively rubs his temples. Looking totally drained by her chaotic energy, he signals for the mage, who hurries over. He orders the mage to organize whatever the elf is saying, since she keeps rambling answers before anyone even opens their mouth. The mage nods, promising to handle it. The little elf instantly looks thrilled. Looking completely bewildered, the mage gives his report. She works over in the Harissa forest and her full name is Sial Tien Urea. The elf proudly interrupts, claiming her name literally means spirit of suppressed words. The mage sighs and continues. It seems Luca, her travel buddy, swiped a mysterious item right off the men who ambushed them. She ended up splitting from Luca while dodging those angry attackers. That is how she bumped into the prince. And she genuinely has no idea why she keeps answering questions before they are asked. As the prince opens his mouth, she cuts him off again. That is not quite right. The prince just completely gives up and tells the mage to keep talking. The mage steps back, but the elf trails right behind him, awkwardly asking if she is following him. Meanwhile, Ian chimes in, asking the prince for his next move. The prince notes she will be hunted the second they leave, so drop her near the forest. Ian asks if they should fix this. Nope, not happening. The prince says they have a massive journey ahead and absolutely zero reason to get tangled in this drama. He plans to just dump the entire investigation on the nearest local lord. While Ian mentions they will arrive by dinner, the knight captain walks up. He asks if His Highness has a quick second. The knight reveals they found something highly suspicious in the enemy's gear and asks for permission to examine it. Watch closely here, things are about to get crazy. The knight hands over a bundled cloth, and the contents completely shock the prince. Shaken, the prince asks if the assassin actually had this item. The knight confirms it, asking if the prince recognizes the object. Cal goes cold, he says. It is absolutely impossible for him not to know. It was the exact same poison he was once forced to take. He demands to see the prisoner immediately. Off to the side, one tied-up thug mutters that he thought the prince was just some spoiled, pampered rich kid from a fancy family. But I guess there is more to him, the guy admits. Stepping right up to the thug, the prince smirks. He says he is right. He is an even more precious, pampered rich kid. Gripping the deadly vial, the prince drops the act. He asks the guy point blank if he has any idea what this stuff actually is. The thug just stares blankly, totally clueless. He casually explains everyone had one, and since it looked valuable, he just swiped a few. The prince asks what they wanted. The guy shrugs. What do we think happens next? Alright, stick with me here. Calian demands names, but the captive blames the masks. Classic. Our prince presses him for more details, but the guy denies everything. Still, Calian spots something super sketchy in his weird behavior. Leaning in close, Calian drops a truth bomb. This dude is definitely not staying quiet out of loyalty. He asks what the actual problem is, promising to fix absolutely everything if the guy just cooperates with him. I mean, he is a royal VIP, he can handle anything. The captive is completely stunned by his insane confidence. Whispering in defeat, he confesses his wife is in Hansen village, a fact Calian already knew. Calian guarantees her absolute safety, then quickly demands to know what the invaders actually lost. The guy describes a tiny, transparent marble about the size of a fingernail. He has zero clue what it is, but heard a Tensel priest needs to verify the weird object. Bingo. Calian realizes they are hunting a sacred relic, which Tensel priests use to substitute their holy power. No wonder the Tensel faction is aggressively hoarding as many relics as humanly possible. Now, pay close attention here. The motive makes sense, but where did they get that specific poison? That toxic stuff is the exact suicide pill Secretia agents use when a covert mission goes horribly wrong. The guy got it via the White Eagle. He does not know their real identities, but he overheard their leader's codename. When Calian asks for the name, the captive answers Blue Wagtail. Calian freezes up. He definitely recognizes that ridiculous title. It is literally the name of one of Bern's father's birds. Why the heck is that person here? Later, deep inside Latron territory, the rain is pouring down hard. Inside the manor, a local lord chats with the prince, calling the terrible weather an absolute blessing. It stalled their travel completely. Slamming his fancy goblet down, he claims he waited forever for this. Looking super smug, he calls it a massive honor. Meet Count Hale Latran, the local lord. Hale just keeps yapping happily, claiming the heavens themselves are practically begging him to serve the glorious young prince. Calian thinks this dude talks way too much, suddenly recalling a warning chat he had with Ian. Ian had casually asked if he remembered the good old Count Hale. Hale previously sent a bribe, and Calian specifically remembered bouncing that gift right back. His name was sitting right on the rejection list. His loyal servant noted Hale originally backed Prince Randall, but shamelessly flipped to Prince Plants 6 years ago during the massive Great Desert and Tensel War. You and I know the type. Calian realizes this guy is just a shameless, two-faced opportunist. Meanwhile, Count Hale remains hilariously oblivious. He just keeps sucking up, swearing he eagerly awaited the prince's grand arrival. Calian bets he secretly plotted with Plants last year. Even the butler, Malcolm, looks deeply embarrassed by his boss. Suddenly, Hertz bursts through the door urgently, needing to deliver a secret message to Calian. Leaning in, he whispers the good news: they completely intercepted the enemy's messenger pigeon. Calian knows someone tried warning Blue Wagtail. No normal bird flies through that crazy dark storm just for fun. Clueless Hale asks the mage where he has been awkwardly offering him a strong, stiff drink. Calian cuts him off. Hard pass on the alcohol. Instead, he demands to know about any local Tensel priests. Startled, Hale knocks over his wine bottle, flashing a goofy smile and blaming the heavy booze. He slurs his words, asking if the prince really just mentioned those Tensel priests. Suddenly furious, the Count heavily rants about those damned wretches never visiting this remote dump. Calian quickly snaps at him to calm down, but Hale keeps complaining, swearing those guys are pure evil and telling Calian to watch his back. Mid-rant, Calian simply snaps his fingers and forcefully commands the noisy Count to go to sleep. Boom! Hale faceplants onto the table out cold. Everyone else absolutely panics at the magic. He dryly blames his anger at the guy's rudeness. Cut to Calian riding out in the storm. Chatting with Manasil through his magic ring, the mage asks if the prince stumbled onto a secret item and ruined his own life. Calian totally brushes it off, jokingly telling Manasil not to stress over his peaceful retirement plans. When Manasil questions his shadowy connections, Calian drops a cold flex. He literally never fails a mission. And this is where we leave it. Trust me, the enemy absolutely knows they are messing with the Kyris prince. Let us dive in. Who in their right mind actually uses an arrow as a secret agent weapon? Manasil told the prince to go scout around Latron and find exactly where the Tensel priest was hiding. The mage insisted they absolutely needed to uncover what these shady agents were plotting with those supposedly holy priests. Cut to some random bar. A woman is just casually cleaning glasses when Prince Calian confidently strolls inside. He says hello quickly, explaining the guys passed out outside were just his annoying stalkers. She puts down her glass, telling him to chill out. She is not cruel enough to hurt innocent bystanders anyway. Calian smirks, guessing she attacked them while fully knowing his royal identity. She fires back that this is exactly why he should stay out of it. Then the prince realized everyone around them was totally knocked out cold. She calls him out for being reckless. Calian just casually strolls up to the counter, asking if he is officially involved now. He starts to say yes, but then she locks eyes with him and instantly spots that intense red aura flaring up. She quickly concludes that dealing with him will not be easy at all. The prince simply gives a slight smile. She then asks if the elf she was hunting died. He grumbles, explaining they completely lost the guy once he bolted straight into the forest path. She sighs, saying if she knew it would be this annoying, she never would have chased him in the first place. She hates dealing with this drama, asking him to just leave since no one got hurt. She even promises to completely drop her hunt for the elf kid. Calian grabs a glass, striking a deal. Answer a few simple questions and he will gladly walk away. Now pay attention, this is where it gets spicy. He stares her down bluntly, stating she is clearly no priestess, so why hunt sacred relics? The woman instantly looks super annoyed. She just snatches the cup right back from Calian and mutters that relics sell for massive cash lately. Our boy instantly figures out she is black market selling them. She shrugs, admitting her actual day job seriously does not pay the bills. Calian just stares at her calmly, asking if her super wealthy relic buyer is actually hiding somewhere here in Latran. He points out the flaw. Why sell in Latran? It would be way easier and more profitable to scam the rich priest down in Kyris. She hits back, saying nobody pays out more gold than this specific guy. Plus she already has an established very solid connection with him. Calian connects the dots. If they have a connection, it has to be those secret agents selling top-tier classified information right out of Kyris. And to fund all that juicy blue warbler intel, these shady agents are literally buying up stolen sacred relics. And Calian finally realizes she poured him some wine. He stares at the cup, gearing up to drop his absolute final hard-hitting question. Meanwhile, back at the fancy royal palace, the king gets annoyed. He asks Manasil what he wants, complaining he is basically being treated like a cheap informant. Manasil smirks, claiming he knew the king was awake anyway. Plus, there is zero reason to dance around confirming secrets that the king definitely already knows. He asks how many Tensel priests are hiding in Kyris and exactly where. The king squints, totally suspicious. He cannot tell if Manasil actually knows something huge and is baiting him, or if this is just wild coincidence. Tensel's official representatives came specifically because of this exact situation. You are probably wondering why the drama. Well, they desperately want to find and drag back all 14 missing priests. They are doing this just so they will not have to request any more priests. King groans, feeling completely offended. After Kyris sent them away to celebrate, Tensel is basically acting like Kyris is exploiting their holy priests. Manasil points out Tensel is struggling. They hid their messy situation but clearly needed their priests back. So what exactly did the king do? The grumpy king literally just told them to go find the rest and take them. The king demands to know why he is asking. Manasil simply shrugs, revealing that Prince Calian specifically wants the exact locations of these priests. The king instantly thinks that is super suspicious. Why on earth would the prince be asking about that? He is totally confused. Why ask for their coordinates when Calian basically walked right into the exact place where they were hiding? Back at the bar, Calian asks if the buyer is Count Hale Latran. Sipping her wine, she plays dumb, just saying who knows. She playfully adds that the question is not that simple. Calian immediately jumps on his horse, realizing the Count totally faked being clueless. The guy completely hid the priest and played dumb the entire time. Worse, after buying overpriced relics, he sold Kyris out to Secretia's agents. Back at the palace, Manasil realizes the prince is totally right. Calian snaps into action, declaring he absolutely must rush back to the castle immediately. Mage senses the total panic in his voice and asks what went wrong. Calian confirms it. He explains that back at dinner, when he cast that sleep magic, Count Latran was absolutely faking, being passed out drunk. Meanwhile, someone at the palace screams about massive disrespect. And that is where we pause. Trust me, you will want to see what happens next. Let's dive right into the chaos. Ian is holding off the Count's butler, claiming the prince is out walking. But this guy won't quit, insisting the Count just wants to apologize. Ian cuts him off. Trying to cover up your master's absolute disrespect, Ian is completely furious now. He snaps back, since when does a lowly Count's butler question a prince's schedule? The old butler freezes up, totally terrified and completely at a loss for words. Ian sweats a bit inside. He knows the prince definitely isn't back yet. Still, the annoying butler pushes again, asking when His Highness will return. Ian finally loses it, yelling that it is none of his business to know. Right on cue, the prince throws open the bedroom door, grumbling about losing his beauty sleep. Both Ian and the butler jump out of their skin. Calian glares at Ian, calling him useless. I told you to get rid of them. How hard is a simple lie, he sighs, totally shocking Ian. His servant quickly apologizes, whispering that this old guy was just way too stubborn. Bam! The prince slams the door right in their faces. From the hallway, the panicked butler stammers out apologies. He swears he didn't know His Highness was napping and finally scurries away. Inside, Calian leans against the door, exhaling hard. Then he winces. He just sounded exactly like someone from his past life, and he absolutely hates it. Ian slips into the room. "You are back way sooner than I thought," he says. "And through a third-story window, no less." Pure sass. Calian just waves him off. It is a really long story. The prince quickly asks if anyone else came snooping around or acted weird. Ian shakes his head. "Nope, just that incredibly annoying butler from earlier. Well, except for a royal prince who uses windows as doors," Ian adds. He still can't believe the kid jumped out a third-floor window. Calian just chuckles awkwardly, telling his servant that he gets the point. But Calian is curious. Why was Ian so triggered just now? He never got this mad back at the main palace. Ian huffs, saying the guy simply refused to listen. Even after being told Calian was out for a walk, he just kept demanding an exact return time. That detail strikes Calian as incredibly weird. Ian explains it perfectly. The butler didn't care where the prince actually went. He only cared about exactly when he would be back in his room. Now, pay attention here. Calian meets up with the mage, revealing that the Count already knows they are snooping around, and he confirms their theory. The Count was totally faking being drunk earlier. The mage asks how he knows for sure. Calian smirks. Today is the exact day for trading sacred relics, which totally explains why that blue warbler agent is here. Spilling wine was just a cheap trick to slip away unnoticed. But that whole sneaky plan blew up when Calian magically knocked him out cold. So when Hale realized I left the estate, he sent his old butler to do some frantic digging, Calian explains. The mage nods slowly, asking him why does he want a sacred relic so badly. Simple. Hale plans to bribe Tencel, the homeland of Prince Randall's mother, for some royal favors, so he plays nice with Randall. The mage notes while totally kissing up to plants and sending me secret bribes. He even sold out our kingdom to a spy. Absolute trash. Saving Sia from those thugs was just the start, Calian points out. The hunter dropped the blue warbler's name. That is how I figured out Hale was using them to smuggle relics to Tencel, all just to suck up to Prince Randall. You and I both know this is no accident. Calian pauses. This storm is going all night, and since I am trapped here, time to wreck this traitor. Meanwhile, Hale smashes a glass in pure rage. He regrets ever underestimating Calian after those returned gifts. Hale just knows the kid used magic on him because no normal wine knocks someone out that hard. His entire scheme is ruined. All because that arrogant brat has an overpowered mage backing him up. How dare a filthy half-blood act like royalty, and that useless Queen Silic. Why didn't she just poison him ages ago? Hale fumes. I spent years sucking up to the high-ranking nobles. I threw mountains of gold at Marquis Brisson. I was promised prime real estate on the border, but Calian ruined everything, Hale screams. Just then, his nervous butler slowly cracks the door open, asking to enter. Hale flops onto the couch, glaring. Did you finally get a hold of the blue warbler? The butler stutters, saying not yet. Smash Hale violently chucks another glass right at his head, screaming that he is an idiot. Can you do anything right? Hale bellows. Look at this rain. That means the cursed half-blood is spending another night in my house. That's where we leave it. The terrified butler asks to delay the deal. Let's jump into the madness. Hale was absolutely furious, snapping that they couldn't risk a move with the prince around. He yelled for a maid to grab his clothes. Hale swore he would teach Prince Calian some actual manners. Fast forward to the next day. Calian was just calmly eating his lunch. Count Hale just glared at the young man. He could not believe Calian was acting so innocent. Here in Kyris, my title means everything, Hale fumed. The local nobles absolutely will not sit back if they find out magic was used on me. Your fancy royal blood will not save you, you foolish prince. Soon you will beg for mercy. Hale then gave a fake apology for his behavior last night. Calian just brushed it off. The Count tried asking if some spell hit him. But before Hale even finished, Calian casually admitted he used sleep magic because the Count was being super annoying. Flashing a total troll smile, Calian told him to relax. He joked that it was probably his first time hosting royalty. Calian added that the Count must have just been feeling super nervous. Hale forced a fake smile, but deep down, pure rage. Calian was expertly spinning it like the Count was the one at fault. Then Calian completely shifted gears, saying he was tired of investigating his attacker. Hale quickly asked if he meant the guy the prince caught. Calian nodded, mentioning they had already pulled a ton of juicy info. Now watch closely. The Count really needed to know more. Before Hale asked a thing, Calian dropped a massive hint about a bird's name. Hale instantly choked and spat out his wine. Shocked, the butler rushed over with a towel, but Hale aggressively waved him off, demanding space while he talked to the royal guest. Calian wrapped up by saying he still needed to check out some finer details. He figured the Count would want an update about his own turf. Hale immediately stood up, swearing he would help catch anyone attacking a prince. You think I will let you run wild in my domain? Just you wait, kid. I will dig into this mess and expose your weak spot, Hale plotted. Suddenly, a knight walked in needing the prince. Watching them whisper secretly, the count realized he had to kick this prince out of his territory right away. But Calian totally broke his train of thought, revealing the message was actually for Hale. That completely caught him off guard. Smiling, Calian said a prisoner wanted a word. They both marched straight down to a sketchy dungeon. Hale was visibly fuming that this little prince dared drag him into a cell. Calian totally saw that coming. He knew exactly how angry the count felt. You and I know a trap when we see one, right? Let's flash back to last night in this exact spot to see how it was set. The bruised guy locked behind those iron bars desperately asked about his wife's safety. Calian kept his promise, assuring the prisoner that his family was completely safe and untouched. He had given his word. The confused inmate asked why a prince was even down here. Calian casually pointed out that the guy already knew why. His execution was basically guaranteed. You simply do not attack royal blood and live. Once the investigation wrapped up, he would be hauled to Kyris and killed. And even if he somehow survived, Calian made it clear he would not get any medical help. His wounded arm would rot away and kill him anyway. The prisoner asked what he wanted. Calian leaned in and smoothly offered him a way out of this nightmare. Guy looked absolutely stunned. The prince told him he could live peacefully far away, but only if he did exactly as told. In exchange for your help, I will make sure they only chop off your arm, nothing more. Hearing that, pure terror washed over the guy's face. Calian just stared him down, dead serious. He had no choice but to agree. Jumping back to the present, the prisoner revealed he called Hale because Mariquita was secretly a spy from Secretia. She was actually here to sell illegal goods to a very long-term client of hers. Face-slapping time. The prince dramatically gasped, saying how strange that sounded. A shady deal like that only works if it involves a massive traitor leaking top-secret intel. Sounds about right, doesn't it? Count Calian asked, closing his trap. Hale looked completely panicked, sweating bullets and barely able to speak. Calian just stayed dead quiet, waiting for the corrupt count to make a stupid mistake. That panic would be all the proof he needed. Later, the butler fell to his knees. He cried out that he was literally just following his terrible master's direct orders. He didn't make excuses, just begged for mercy. Trust me, we want to see what's next. All right, stick with me here. The butler thought Count Latran's secret was out, but he never expected this massive twist. The prince just casually asked him, "Are you a tinsel priest?" That completely stunned him. Calian just kept going, pointing out the butler must be the one actually fencing the holy relics, and the only reason he acted so obediently toward Count Latran, the count had obviously figured out his dirty little secret. Cornered, the butler confessed. If anyone back home found out about the relic smuggling, Tencel would execute him the second he returned. Calian was genuinely surprised to hear the butler was the actual seller, so the count wasn't the buyer at all. He then demanded to know exactly who bought those stolen goods. Shaking, the butler revealed his VIP client, Viscount Lenin Brisson, the older brother of Queen Silica herself. He was gifting the relics to Tencel. Lenin Brisson had secretly built a powerful connection there that meant total betrayal. He ditched Franz, sided with Randall, and completely backstabbed Silica and his own Brisson family, who wanted Franz as the heir. Chatting with the mage Manisil later, the prince smirked. His little trap for the count had snagged way bigger prey. Manisil just asked what the prince's next move was. Now pay attention here. Calian said his next move would cause absolute chaos, suggesting they bring this straight to Roumain. Manisil totally agreed. Calian told Manisil to write a letter to Count Hale Latran. Meanwhile, the prince ordered his servants to treat the captive's mangled arm downstairs. The injury was brutal. Healing it would take forever, so chopping it off was the much better option. Then, showing the poison, he ordered them to feed it to the prisoner. Knight nodded, heading down. Calian also ordered Kyrie to hit up Hansen village, find the guy's wife, and stash her somewhere safe. As the prisoner choked down the medicine, a little elf girl crashed the prince's meeting. She busted right into his room, blurting out that she brought Hina without asking. Before Calian could even speak, the kid begged him not to scold Hina. She dashed toward the tiny bird, leaving the prince totally unbothered. She ran up to the tiny bird and started playing with it. Jan asked if His Highness planned on packing up the pigeon for their trip. Calian just firmly said nope. Jan guessed he'd return it to the owner. Hina also started playing with the pigeon. Calian and Jan just watched. Then Calian promised to get Hina her own bird back at the palace, since this pigeon had to go home tonight. Hina worried that Merlin might hate having a bird in their room. The prince just flashed a smile and called it a real pity. He told Hina to help him set the bird free right after dinner, reminding her to leave the window wide open too. Hina sounded super doubtful about this. You and I know what an open window means. A guest was coming. Hours passed and everyone left the room. Only the prince remained casually reading. Suddenly a noise came from the window. Closing his book, Calian noted his guest was early. Stepping from the shadows, the visitor claimed to be deeply moved by his letter. That letter was pure blackmail. Show up here in person or Niransha finds out exactly what you've been doing. Blue Warbler had arrived. She demanded to know why he was threatening her. Sliding a paper from his book, Calian claimed he had hard proof Hale was trading relics. Hand over that evidence and her secret stays safe. She just stared in dead silence. He asked if that was her answer. She said yes, adding that she hated complicated relationships. Then she blasted multiple magic projectiles right at him. The prince was totally shocked, seeing magic orbs flying his way. Throwing up a magic barrier, he remembered she used to fight with a sword. The deadly orbs bounced off, smashing loudly into the walls. Hearing the explosion, the royal knights outside started panicking over an intruder in the bedroom. Calian locked the door, ordering them to stay out. He turned to her, asking if assassination was really her only plan for tonight. She stepped right toward him, coldly, stating that she had zero other options. Drawing her blade, she lunged straight for his throat, but Calian perfectly blocked it. He knew his basic iron sword couldn't survive her crazy aura for long. He had to end this fight fast, completely, without using his own aura. He actually landed a solid strike, forcing her to fall back on defense until he finally disarmed her. But plot twist, she had one last magic orb hidden, firing it when he least expected it. She launched the deadly orb point blank, way too fast to dodge. Forced into a corner, he finally coated his blade in aura and sliced the magic orb cleanly in half. What do you and I learn? His cheap sword couldn't handle it shattering completely. Stick with me, we are jumping right back into the action. Seeing him slice that magical orb, she asks if he is some master swordsman. The prince stays dead silent, calculating his next move. Then he drops her real name, Aya. Her eyes immediately go wide in pure shock, before she can even ask how he knows that he suddenly grabs her face. She protests, but the prince forces her mouth open. He stares right inside, and casually points out that her hidden suicide poison is completely missing. Calian demands she spill everything she knows. Aya shoots back, asking if talking buys her freedom. I heard secretions were actually determined, but you, not so much, Calian mocks. Meanwhile, in his head, he wonders if she was always like this, or if something broke her. Aya just glares back, insisting it would be much better to let her go. He then points out his dirty secret, a master swordsman carrying a basic guard sword just to hide his insanely overpowered skills. Send me packing if you want to stay hidden. Otherwise, I am telling those knights outside exactly what I just saw, she threatens. Back in his past life, Marika Azul was fiercely loyal to Secretia, a true swordmaster. That is definitely not you, he thinks. Grabbing her right by the shirt, Calian speaks up. Now watch closely. He says, if you told me to live, you should not have died first. Aya freezes, and dead silence fills the room. Letting go of her shirt, he coldly tells her not to expect any favors. That secret is not worth your life. He tells her to just bring some solid evidence and he will drop the whole interrogation. Plus, the White Eagle would be running the real interrogation, a threat that visibly terrifies Aya. Meanwhile, someone else is throwing a massive tantrum. Count Hale is swearing loudly, furious because his lackey Malcolm is still completely missing. Malcolm was supposed to check on a situation and find out what a certain letter said. That letter basically said the Count needs a lawyer. It read, I told Queen Psylike everything you are illegally selling, so relax, you are totally fine. And the sender, the legendary mage Alan Manassel. Hale starts sweating, wondering if Alan knows about his smuggled sacred relics. He figures if the mage sent that threat, he absolutely knows everything. Who does that arrogant mage think he is? He mutters, furious, that he even has to bow down to some trashy commoner prince. He probably expects me to come crying and begging, but he severely underestimated who he is messing with. You see this coming, right? He brags about his backup plans, then struts right into a room packed with treasures. Looking over his golden stash, he greedily wishes he had stolen even more. He approaches a safe, scoffing, because inside, something infinitely better. He cracks open a small box stuffed with glowing sacred relics. With these babies I am set for life, he boasts. But as he schemes, Hertz slowly materializes right behind him. Before the Count can even snap the lid shut, the box literally vanishes. He whips around, freezing in pure panic as Hertz holds his precious stash. Hale stammers, asking about invisibility magic. Hertz just nods, officially revealing himself as the mage of Prince Calian. Hertz cheerfully thanks the Count for being so helpful and digging up the hard evidence with his own hands. In peak sarcasm, he tells Hale not to worry, he will personally deliver this to that cunning mage and the damned commoner prince himself. Cut to Hertz handing the shiny loot over to Calian. He happily reports he also swiped all the leaked Kyris documents and the illegal trade ledgers. Flashing a wicked smile, the prince thanks his mage, declaring that their chaotic little trap is finally ready to spring. Suddenly, Ian bursts through the door in total panic, begging the prince to check outside. Outside, an entire fleet of heavy cavalry approaches, completely decked out in blinding golden armor. Staring out the glass, Calian instantly recognizes them, the personal knights of King Kyela. Why are the ultimate royal guards suddenly here? Trust me, we need to find out.